Happy hump day, everyone. Oh my God. It's Wednesday. We made it to Wednesday,
It's
everybody.
finally here.
It's finally here,
The
the
day you
day of
get
the
to
hump.
throw down
What does that mean? Who's throwing down? To what?
halfway to the weekend. You get
Okay.
to fight your way to the weekend. What'd you think I mean, you
That's
dirty
a good
mind?
point. That's a good point. So you sent me this clip. This is a bunch of interesting news coming out today. This is
Yep.
we talked about this pretty extensively. This very, very strange Kamala Harris plan to tax unrealized gains.
Yeah, so we
And
did a little research stream. We should give the background.
right. That's what I was going to do. So we did a
Okay.
little research into this, and it turned out that it was kind of unclear whether her campaign had officially supported this or not, because this came out of Joe Biden's tax plan that he proposed this year. And the Harris campaign was basically just like, yeah, whatever Joe said, that's what we're going to do. Right. They didn't really come up with their own plan on taxing. So it's like, okay, was this really, are they going to go through with this? Are they not going to go through this? Now, I believe you thought, or you had claimed that you predicted that Kamala would throw this in the trash, right? This would
I
just
did,
be
yeah.
like a test thing, and then they'll see how it does, and it'll do poorly, and they'll say,
One of
no,
my
we're going to get rid of
few
this.
bad predictions, it would seem. I just want to say, some of you in the comments said this originated with Elizabeth Warren. I don't know if that's true or not, but it would make sense coming out of Elizabeth Warren. So
I'm sure she proposed something similar to this at some point in the past. So,
right. And you also looked into it because there's a similar thing already in Europe, but you found that it was just 1 to 2%, and they're proposing 25%, which is like a worlds apart, right?
right. Yeah. So, yeah, if you don't know, unrealized gains are essentially if you have investment in, like, just say theoretically, like you have a bunch of stocks and say you have $50,000 worth of Amazon stock. Until you sell that stock, you don't actually have any of that money. It's just theoretical money. And that's called an unrealized gain. And this tax would make it so that if you had over 100 million, I believe is the amount of unrealized gains, you would then have to pay 25% tax on the amount over 100 million.
Right, which is ridiculous because the Amazon stock could crater, Amazon could go out of business, and you paid a bunch of tax on something that's effectively worthless when you finally sell it.
Right. That's the confusing element about it, is that you'd have people and companies would have to essentially sell off shares of or sell off assets to pay a tax for income or wealth they don't actually have at the moment. It's all
Right,
theoretical.
right,
And
exactly.
so,
Yeah.
right. And so, since the number is very big, it's 100 million. People say, does it really matter? Those really rich people. It's like, well, the issue isn't necessarily, I mean, there's a fairness issue, obviously, that people think it's unfair. And I would agree, it doesn't really make sense in that
Totally unfair.
relation.
Yeah.
But it have a more profound impact on the economy in terms of, how businesses own and operate, how startups own and operate. If, the amount of money they have in stock and unrealized assets have to be taxed. They'd have to literally sell off parts of the company just to pay taxes for stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
So we've been
yeah.
digging into it just to kind of find the ramifications of this. We discussed it. We found that it was like we couldn't really see where it came from, so we wondered why people were talking about it. But now I guess people are talking about it a bit more.
Right. Well, it came from Biden. Biden's plan had proposed it
Right.
in earlier this year. So,
Right. But I mean,
right.
even that wasn't super
Yeah, it was
conclusive.
kind of vague. It
Yeah.
was like they didn't really explain a lot. They just said this theoretical concept of throwing this 25% tax, I believe it was,
There
at
was there
this.
was they use the term wealth tax in some proposal. Like they didn't
Right.
come out and use the term unrealized gains. The media kind of said that that was unrealized gains
Yes.
based on them using the word wealth tax. Yeah.
Right. It was, yeah, it's kind of unclear. And then I had said, okay, but it's weird because so Kamala had been hit with this and she didn't come out, or her campaign didn't come out, and they didn't say, no, guys, we're not in favor of this. When I said we're going to copy Joe Biden's tax plan, I meant everything but this,
Yeah.
right?
I mean all the good stuff,
Yeah,
not the
just all
lame
this,
stuff that you
all
hate.
the all the things that people like. And this is really weird too, because not only is there's a question of, like, I found today, there's a question of whether this is even constitutional to have an
Yeah.
unrealized tax, and it's unclear whether it would be or not. And also, it just seems like it's just so stupid. I've seen almost every publication on all sides kind of talk about how dumb this is. This you would think that the donor class of the Democrat Party would really hit Kamala hard to be against this because obviously they're going to be against this. So
I
today you
wonder though.
found,
I wonder like if say you're worth like 50 million.
yeah,
Don't
well
you
then you
really
wouldn't care,
hate
I
the
guess.
people that are worth 1 billion? Don't you really hate the people that are worth 100 million?
Well, you would think if
You're
someone
like,
is,
fuck those people.
well, maybe, but you think that if you're worth that much money, like maybe if you're like a actor or something, you don't know or care, but if you've worth that much money that you've made through business and things of that nature, that you would have enough economic knowledge to understand why this concept would cause problems for the entire economy.
You would think, but never underestimate the power of human jealousy, Sitch.
Okay, I mean that's a good point. That's
I mean,
definitely a good
isn't
point.
this whole thing based on human jealousy? The reason they're proposing this is basically
Well,
catering to people's human jealousy.
let's be a little good faith
Oh
Gary
no,
here. Let's be a little good faith Gary. It's
no!
not there could be a level of jealousy. There's also, I think what's operating is there's a perceived feeling of unfairness. Like it's unfair that, like a tiny minority of people have so much wealth, compared to the majority of people not having that, right? That's what they're operating under. The
I
perceived
look,
unfairness.
they that's the cover story. But as soon as they're in the position where they have the $100 million, and all of a sudden, oh, it's totally fair. It's completely fair.
Well, that's just human nature,
Which makes
right?
me think it's jealousy really driving it. But they can't say, look, I'm jealous as fuck. This guy has so much money, right? That doesn't sound
Yes.
good.
As soon as I get $100 million, then I'm totally against this, right?
So, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
they
of
say,
course.
look, it's unfair. It's
Right.
totally unfair.
Hmm.
And then they get $100 million and they're like, you're just jealous. This is completely fair.
Of course, of course. So here you found this clip. This is of I think the first time we've had someone from the Kamala Harris team officially endorse this unrealized gains taxation plan.
Yeah. And I want to give a quick shout out because
Hmm.
somebody did actually send this to me.
Okay,
Trying to
somebody
get
sent it
better
to
about
us.
this.
Right, right.
It looks like Beweezy Bird turned me on to this. So
Oh,
thank you
thank you.
so
Thank you.
much. And we'll take a look at it here.
Right.
Where I guess we're going to do a 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, let's hit it.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
And sure, and all the revenue that comes in from these unrealized gains taxes and the other taxes in the Harris plan are going to go to creating what she calls more opportunity. It's to make sure
but
that
it's not
every
a use
newborn
tax
born
for
in
the
this
people who
country
are actually
gets
using
$6,000.
the services.
Well, look, you're arguing that this is some sort of foreign concept that's completely unknown in the U.S. tax code. It's
probably unconstitutional. It's probably, and it was never in anyone's intent to
It's not income.
tax.
It's not an income tax,
and
if
it's
you're
never going to
taxing
happen.
gain.
Probably. Not well. I'm not going to say my lifetime.
I wouldn't say that.
Not in Becky's lifetime.
and sure, and all the revenue that comes in
All
from
right.
these
The CNBC guy's like, "Are you kidding me?" Like he's just kind of in shock.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. It's everyone always says, I mean, it's in investing, you always say, it's not a gain until you sell.
Hmm.
Because it could, like, you could be up one day and down the next. So it really is. It's so weird. It's so weird. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons why it doesn't make sense. So here we have the official confirmation, I guess, which is pretty strange. I, you know, I could have believed that they would have dropped this from the campaign. It does. I mean, I know, and we said this, Kamala is running on populism. Both candidates are running as populists. This seems just so stupid. It's really weird. We have Kamala pushing this. We have Trump pushing the tariffs. Like, I just feel like we're kind of a lot of pushing for really dumb economic policies this election cycle.
I know.
Hmm.
I was going to look on CNBC's YouTube channel and see if we could find the whole thing. So I want to point out, first of all, he uses the term unrealized gains.
He does, yeah.
He definitely uses it. So, and I don't know if this guy is an economic advisor for Harris or what the deal is. I'd like to see the entire interview. He also points out $6,000 going to newborns. I wonder if he's talking about the child tax credit which is a little bit different than just giving someone a cash payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know what that is. I also, the idea, this idea, and this is super bad economics, because the idea that you can take some wealthy person's money and, you know, spread it around, and you're not going to cause inflation. Like, I know you hate the pizza example. I wish we had a better example than that. But if you have a pizza with 10 slices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have 20 people, right? You have one rich person that has all the money, and you have like 9 other people that have some money, and you have 10 people that have no money, right? You're going to, you know, you're going to get a bidding war for those slices of pizza, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rich person, though, can only consume so much pizza, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's not going to, this is why I kept going back to the example of Elon Musk. I'm like, how much does Elon Musk really consume? Like, everybody's looking at Elon Musk like he's this, like they're jealous of the resources he has in his bank account, but they're not like real resources, right? He doesn't own like 50 homes or something like that. Obviously, there probably are rich people that are in that situation. So, but if you take the rich person's money and you give it to all the 20 people, now all the 20 people have $1,000, right? You still got 10 slices of pizza,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you got 20 people with $1,000 that want a slice of pizza. What's going to happen? You're going to get inflation. So they have this idea that Elon Musk's bank account, that the money is actual resources. Like, we can just take all the wood and steel and housing materials out of Elon Musk's bank account, and we can use that to build houses. Well, that's not how it works. These are basically just
Mm-hmm.
points. You're saying, look, Elon Musk has accumulated a bunch of points that you can use to get resources in the game. If those resources don't exist in the game, what good does it do to have the points?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, 2 things. Number 1, I found a 7-minute, 30-second clip of this interview.
Okay. Is it on YouTube or on the internet?
It's not on YouTube, but I put in the watch together, and you can do the thing where it opens in like that second window.
Okay, we'll give it a shot.
So it's working for me. I don't know. You have to see if it's working for you. So that's first thing. And the second thing is going to your pizza example while you're trying to set this up. Yeah, but isn't the argument, or the argument would be, is that okay? So if you take the money away from Elon, you give it to, you know, the other 20 people, they all want to buy a slice of pizza, right? And you're saying, okay, well, that would, you know, increase the price of things. And that's true at first, but then wouldn't the argument be, when this increased demand, you'd have then an increase of people producing pizza to meet the demand?
Say that again. I was messing around with the watch together.
That you'd have, if you took the money from Elon and you gave it to their people and they all want to buy pizza, even though that would increase price at first because there's this increased demand without this increase of supply, the increased demand would create incentives for, you know, businesses
more
to
pizza,
match,
more
right,
pizza
and to make more
production.
pizza, blah, 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 blah.
It depends upon, and this is where your understanding of economics is important. It depends upon how close we are to the maximum number of pizzas we can make in
Sure.
the economy. Okay.
Of course, yeah.
So, and this is where, you know, different economists have different theories, but a lot of economists believe that we're not even close to that. Like, they've done studies where most companies are at 50% of productive capacity, right? Like, if there was more demand, if demand for whatever product and service they were making doubled, they could double production, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of excess capacity out there. And yes, if we take all the money out of Elon Musk's bank account and we do that, and it does create excess demand, and there is plenty of people who want to make pizzas, there's plenty of people who are making flour and all the stuff that goes into pizzas, right? Yes, the economy will accommodate that increased demand, and suddenly we're making more pizzas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the bottleneck is the real resources. But
Right.
I don't know, like, there's a lot of financial resources out there that it's there's this balancing act between the points and the resources, right? I don't know if there's how many points there are compared to how many resources there are. Because you can overwhelm the system with money and not have enough resources to compensate. The pandemic proves this because
Yes.
the supply, there was the same number of points or dollars out in the
Or an
economy.
increased number of points.
Yeah, because they were giving people money, right? And the supply chain stopped, the productive resources stopped. What happened? That's why we're in the inflation crisis that we're in right now.
Right.
Yeah. People started competing for those scarce resources, and pretty soon coffee, Starbucks coffee is like $8 a gallon or a half gallon.
Right.
What does this say? They're I guess it's asking me to turn my ad blocker off.
Oh, you're gonna say continue without supporting. I should say like underneath.
Oh,
it.
there is? Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
You're great.
Yeah, it gave me the same thing. So remember, you
Okay.
got to press the play button at the bottom of the watch together, not the one on screen.
It was relatively easy. I can't believe how I'm like, my God.
Okay.
How did that pop up so easily? Normally
Okay.
it's like a big pain in the butt.
I
But
know. So ready? Is it up? Got it.
it's so up right now.
Okay. Good.
Here it is. Oh, I guess it's that's not really up. See, can I make this? Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, now we're ready to go. Go ahead. I'll let you.
Make sure the chat can hear it too.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Did you hit play or what?
Wait. Oh, it's not playing for you?
No.
Oh, it's playing for me.
Okay.
Wait. Hold on. Let me refresh it here.
Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota
Okay, it was playing. I got it going.
Okay.
And there's
President
sound.
Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will be sitting down for an interview on CNN tomorrow night. Investors are hoping to learn more about their economic plan, and joining us right now to talk more about that is Bharat Ramamurthy, who served as the deputy director of the National Economic Council under President Biden and is an informal economic advisor to the Harris for President campaign.
Okay, there you go.
What does that mean? An informal economic advisor to the Harris campaign?
That means we can cut this guy loose if nobody likes his policy. They're totally testing the waters.
Is that what
They're
that?
totally testing the waters.
Okay. So you still think that your prediction is going to come true now?
I mean, why would they call him? Look, why would he say that?
You're correct. An informal campaign advisor. I've never heard of such a thing.
Well, unless he's just some yahoo that wants to get on CNBC and he's
Right.
he's like, oh no, I'm not working for the Harris campaign. I worked for them at one time, Yeah.
I mean,
and look, he's for the
informal-
Biden campaign.
Informal can mean anything. It can mean that this is a person who is effectively working with the Kamala Harris campaign, but you're correct. They want to be able to like throw this away if they don't like it. Or it could be like he walked by Kamala Harris on the street and was like, hey, Kamala, let me tell you about my economic policy as she walked by.
Well, look, it got him on CNBC, so.
Well, okay, good for him.
We're pressing.
And Bharat, thank you for being here. I'm very glad to have you here today because there's an article on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that lays out what they say is Harris's tax policy, her plan that she'd like to put in place. And it's not very often that we get someone who kind of understands the ins and outs who can talk us through these things. I realize that in order for some of these things to happen, it would have to mean that Kamala Harris not only won the White House, but you sweep in both houses of Congress. But let's talk through the wish list just so investors can really get their heads around some of these things. Under her plans, taxes on high-income households will go up. We've kind of known that's the plan. Top marginal rates would reach the highest point since 1986. That's 44.6% on all income versus right now you've got 23.8% on capital gains and just over 39% on wages. Why don't we talk about
Did you press it or did you pause? I paused.
I mean, it paused when you paused. Did you press it just
I
now?
paused,
Pause me.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So look, where's your line on taxation and theft? I mean, 44% is getting a little excessive, but I
Yeah,
mean, it's been as high as 90%, but I would say a 90% upper tax bracket is theft. Like who, what?
right.
90%? Look, now you can see this is where Sitch is a left winger. He's like, what's wrong with
What's
90%?
wrong with no, it's because my obviously, yeah, you had this thing where like income tax was super high for a pretty long time. It was in
Yeah.
like the 70 to 90% range for the top earners. And I agree with you, like you hear that and you go, what the fuck? Um, my only contention with that is that, again, so this is a reaction to the Great Depression, and it was done to try to create some kind of incentive in how the ultra wealthy were getting their money and spending their money. And my understanding is this is sort of what caused the situation where like people were really getting paid in stock shares as opposed to just getting paid outright.
Oh,
Is
wow.
is the fact that that's kind of why that, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that that's why that behavior even came to be in the first place. So you do have to be careful because I agree with you. 9%, that's like seems totally insane, but there could have been a reason for what, like there's a behavior that they're trying to create, because that's why the capital gains tax was so low. So at the same time that the income tax was super high, the capital gains tax was super low. So very obviously the government is trying to create a specific behavior out of the wealthy people in the country.
Right. I don't like the term taxation as theft because I think taxation obviously is a necessary evil, but at some point it does become theft. And I just think 90% tax bracket, 90% of your income is going to taxes is theft. Like most authoritarian countries, and they don't always do it through taxation, they do it through like charging exorbitant prices for business permits and stuff like that. But they end up taxing their populace insanely, like 80, 90%, because there's nothing they can do to stop it. In a democracy, obviously, if taxes get too high, we vote the people out of office. So the politicians try to keep that in mind. Obviously, wealthy people are a small minority, so they're easy to beat up on. But
Sure,
just
but I'm
it's
just saying
90% is insane.
there's a
Or
substantial difference if you're living in an authoritarian country and there's like a government that essentially says we're hitting you with this insanely high tax because go fuck yourself. That's a little bit different than, well, we're hitting you with this really high income tax, but there's a really low capital gains tax, and we're trying to incentivize one type of behavior and disincentivize another type of behavior. That's a
right.
very like this. So I brought up a chart
Well,
that
look,
talks about,
I'm talking just like in concept. Like
I
I
understand the
understand what you're
concept.
saying. Like you're saying okay, they had a 90% tax bracket, but really they're paying 2%, right? Because they're doing
Yes,
this. Yeah,
right.
I'm saying like just let's throw all the shenanigans aside.
Yeah,
Like
obviously, yes.
like when
Right.
does taxation become theft? Like God asked for 10%. Okay, the government wants 44%.
Yes, I agree with you. Like, okay, in a different, not talking about America, but talking about in a vacuum, in a hypothetical situation, yes, if you're paying, 50%, 40% of your tax, of your money that you make just straight to taxes, right? Unless you're getting like fucking golden toilet seats or something amazing back, then it definitely seems, like that.
Right.
Or
Okay.
definitely seems like completely, immoral, right?
Okay.
Unless you're
What?
getting like a lot of bang for your buck.
Right. Okay. Now,
Yes.
what's the chart?
Okay, so the chart, it shows the tax rate from 1913 to today. It's so we have the top tax rates in 1917. So here's interesting. In 1916, the top tax rate was 15%. The next year it got raised to 67%, the top tax rate.
Oh my God.
This is 1917. Then 1918 to 1921, it's 73%. Then it kind of drops down. This is interesting. So the roaring 20s come in, it drops down. 1922 to 1923, it drops down to 58%. Next year, it drops down to 46%. Then from 1925 to 1930, it drops down to 25%, so very low. And then in 1930s, it shoots up back up again. It goes to 63% in 1930s. Then at the end of 1940, it goes really high to 79%. Then obviously 1941, you have World War II come in. It jumps to 81%. And then it goes super high. 1944 goes all the way up to 94% on the top rate. 94%. Then 1940. Now, here's what's interesting. 1945 to 1963. Now, this is a little fascinating. So we have this 20-year period. This is supposed to be America's economic golden years, right?
Right.
1945 to 1963, the top tax bracket is 91%.
Right.
And then in 1964, it drops to 77%. And then in 1965 to 1981, so we have sort of the going out of the post-World War II boom into the beginning of the 80s, it drops to 70%. Then from 1982 to 1986, it drops to 50%. Then 87, 38%. And then it starts to kind of resemble what it looks like today. So
right. I've heard that golden period is because since the income tax rate was 90%, it incentivized the titans of industry to reinvest their capital back into their businesses
exactly.
rather than take it out.
Right. So that's
income.
why I agree with you 100% in theory, but we have to look at like the context of if you're talking about America, you have to look at the context of, well, what did this top tax rate do? What did it mean? Because obviously, you could look at even though like if you look at the 60s and the 40s to the 60s, and people on the left always like to point this out, the middle class had a bigger share of the pie than the top 1% that they always talk about nowadays, right? But there still was a lot of rich people running around 1940s and 1960s, and there was thriving middle class 1940s, 1960s. So that's why I'm saying to be careful when you say, okay, well, there's this insane top tax rate. You say, okay, well, who was actually paying the top tax rate, and what kind of behavior was that 91% tax rate doing? And my understanding is it's did exactly what you said, where it caused the very wealthy people to reinvest into businesses. And that was sort of the behavior that allowed, the middle class to grow and exist in the first place.
Right. Yeah. Which is obviously good.
But to me, this is why I keep saying with the unrealized gains, this is why I get annoyed when I hear people on both the left and right talk about taxation, is that they talk about it primarily from this moral standpoint. Like people say, oh, it seems moral that people, have to pay X tax, or immoral. And I'm like, well, it's not really about the morality of it. It's really about what kind of behavior will it make people do, and will that behavior be beneficial to America as a country or not?
Well, some people think any coercive behavior is immoral, so that's why they
Sure.
Right. So look, Sitch, 5%. Are we in the theft range yet?
No, obviously
10%.
Yeah, no.
15, 20, 25.
Wait, again, are we talking about if you're talking about what are you getting from?
I'm just asking your moral intuition.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Look, you're getting everything that you're getting now. Everything you're getting in the American.
Well, if I'm getting what I'm getting now, I would say anything above 40% would seem pretty bad.
Oh,
anything
man,
I would even say anything above 30% seems kind of rough.
I'm more like in the 20% range.
Okay.
That's my moral intuitions. Yeah.
I'd say if things are the way they are now,
above 20% is theft.
Okay. I would say I'll drop it to like 30, 35. Anything above that range for what we're getting now, it just seems pretty bad to me.
Right. Yeah. Okay, good. Here we go. Back to the video. That was inspired by the Kamala Harris suggesting a 46% top tax bracket.
Well, I'm not in favor. Well, I don't even know if I'm in favor of that currently. But that's only
probably
going
to hit anyone making over $100,000 a year. This is the problem with living in California. You're like,
well, that's
according to the federal government, every single person that lives in California is a rich person.
Well, that's another thing too. That's another good question, is because it also depends on what state you're in. Because like the state that I live in, there is no income tax, right?
Well, there's no state tax, but there is a federal
no state
tax.
income. I mean, there's no state income tax, right?
Yeah, you still pay federal, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah, but the federal tax bracket goes up if you make more money, right? But in a state like California, it costs a lot to live, so you have to make more money just to live. So it puts you in a top tax bracket with the federal government, even though you're basically like middle class.
Well, that's an interesting point too. Yeah, because each state has a different level of inflation or wealth.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
They're raping California.
So Wait, where'd you get this 44% number? Because I'm looking at this article.
They just said it, 46% on the video.
40. Okay, maybe that's. Wait, let me go back.
The announcer said it. We can go back and listen.
It would reach the highest point since 1986. That's 44.6% on all.
Oh, 44.6, 45%.
That's okay. Because the article I'm saying that I'm reading says that they were talking about the current top 1% is 37%, and they're talking about increasing it to 39.6, so a 2.6% increase.
I just wait till it hits 51. Oh my God. 6 months out of the year, you're working for the federal government. Don't tell me that's not theft.
Right. But I'm saying, so I don't know where that 44% number comes from. Because this is a Forbes article, came out like a couple hours ago. But okay.
Yay.
Income versus right now you've got 23.8% on capital gains and just over 39% on wages. Why don't we talk about why you think that has to happen and what the ramifications might be?
This is hilarious.
Wait, hold on, wait. Let me go back. I think we just wait.
Congress, but let's talk through the wish list just so investors can really get their heads around some of these things. Under her plans, taxes on high-income households will go up. We've kind of known that's the plan. Top marginal rates would reach the highest point since 1986. That's 44.6% on all income versus right now you've got 23.8% on capital gains. And
I think she misread it because I'm reading this thing. It says that 44.6. That's for capital gains. That's not for income. So
okay,
that is a drastic. That would be a drastic increase because the capital gains tax.
It's like 20 or 25 depending off.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Right.
It might be like 15 or 20.
Yeah, I think it's like 20 or something. So, or 28 as a maximum, something in that range. So yeah, this would be a pretty big increase for capital gains.
And just over 39% on wages. Why don't we talk about why you think that has to happen and what the ramifications might be?
Sure. Well, a couple points from that article.
Capital gains is 15 to 20%, depending upon how big the capital gain is.
Right. Okay.
That I think are worth emphasizing. Number one, for people who make under $400,000 a year, which is the vast majority of Americans, their taxes would either stay the same or go down under the Harris plan. In fact, for 100 million Americans, they would get a tax cut under the Harris plan. As for very, very high-income Americans, you're right. There's going to be some tax increases under the plan. They're largely focused on capital income, and I think it's a common sense policy to make sure that we address the problem that we have right now, which is that for people who earn most of their income through a large investment portfolio, over the course of their lifetime, the effective rate that they pay on that is a lot lower than somebody who goes in and teaches school every day or drives a bus or works on the factory floor. I think that that's unfair, and I think most of the American people agree with that. So as we're looking for revenue to bring in to do this in a fiscally responsible way, it's a source of income, a source of revenue that makes a lot of sense.
Bharat, let's just talk about that. I mean,
I do agree. My lefty moral intuitions agrees that it seems unfair that if you go to work and you're working in a factory or you're working in a restaurant or you're a computer programmer or you're literally doing a job, that you get paid, that you get taxed at a higher rate than someone who has just invested money in the stock market and, just made good investments or has dividends or whatever. So that moral intuition makes perfect sense to me that it does seem unfair. That's why I say the question to me, it's not really a moral question. It's okay, well, if you do raise capital gains tax that high, that's going to have some effect on people's behavior because people with money, like 90% of their investment strategy is trying to figure out how to avoid to pay taxes on that money. That's what all of the people with money do. And so if you raise capital gains that high, there's going to be some kind of response. I don't know what that response would be. I don't know what it would look like. And it's hard for me to make a determination about, well, is it going to be beneficial for the economy overall or worse for the economy overall?
Yeah, this is the unfair framing that I always see. Like even your example sets it up. You're like the person that's working their ass off versus the person that's getting passive income. Well,
That's the
not
perception of
everybody.
it. Yes.
Yeah, but not everyone that's rich isn't working their ass off. Like there are
I
plenty of
know.
people that make lots of money and it's not passive income. They're working 80-hour weeks. They're busting their ass. They're running a business. They're running multiple businesses. So that's the person that gets fucked. I mean, you can't tell me, oh, well, that person, they're living the lap of luxury. They're making passive income. It's like, why? The example that they're not working as hard as the person that's a teacher, like, no, they are working as hard as the person that's a teacher.
So, yeah, but the issue is like, okay, so the person that you're talking about, right, who's running a business, who's working very hard, they're getting paid probably a large income. And then on top of that, they're also either getting paid through stocks or have a bunch of stocks or other investments anyway, which is quote passive income, right? So it's not quite, so they're still getting paid a bunch of money. It's not like they're
So
not
you,
getting paid for their time or their effort or their work.
so your theory is all rich people are making passive income in some way.
Well, if you define, these sorts of assets as passive income, then definitionally they are, yeah.
Okay, well, I think there are plenty of people who work their ass off and are not making
No.
passive
Okay.
income.
Hold on. Yeah, but we're literally talking about capital gains. So this only applies to people that are making money through capital gains.
She
Right?
said all income. She said an income tax.
No. There's a 2% increase on income tax. The capital gains tax is the one that's effectively going to be doubled from the 20% to the 44%.
Okay, well, there's capital gains in flipping houses. Does that not work? Is that passive income?
Flipping a house is considered capital gains?
Yeah, of course. You buy a house and you sell it for more money, you pay a capital gains tax. There are all sorts of places where where capital gains is taxed.
Okay.
I wouldn't call that
So,
passive income.
Well, that's true. I guess that is true. Well, if you're active, it's your job, I guess, you're right. If it's your job to, and this is why I'm talking about the moral intuition before you get very emotional about it, which is interesting.
Look,
okay.
I'm not.
No. Because because you can even think about it from flipping houses, or you can even think about like, what if your job is literally to manage these portfolios for people, right?
Right. That's not passive.
Exactly. So you have a very active role in, playing the markets, managing these assets, blah, 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 blah. Right. And so you could even say, well, even the term passive income has like a moral weight to it because it's right. You're right. The perception of it is like you're just sitting on your ass and you're just making a bunch of money. You hear this from people that talk about like landowners or renters.
Of course.
They're just sitting around making money, right? It's seen as like this passive thing. It's kind of seen as like people on the left perceive it as immorally. And that's the point I'm trying to show you. I'm not saying that I agree with it or that every person that's making capital gains is evil. I make capital gains. There's nothing wrong with making money through capital gains processes. What I'm saying is that the left, I understand the left-wing moral intuition that the question you ask is, why does that action tax less than working a normal job? That's the question.
No,
right?
but they're talking past the sale on this stuff when they wrap. They basically make the insinuation that anyone who has money got it from passive income. Got it because they didn't work for it.
They're selling it that way morally. Yes.
My whole point in bringing this up is that no, that's not the case. There are actually people who work their ass off, and they're the people that drive the economy. I mean, your moral intuitions are calibrated for a metric that's invisible to you because, like, if we could look at the person, each individual case, and develop a score for how much of this income was passive income and how much of this income was active income, then we'd actually be judging on something, right? We'd look at one guy and we'd say, look, oh, this guy's just got a stock portfolio. He's living in the Riviera drinking Mai Tais all day, right? He's like at 100% passive income. This other guy over here, he's at the same income level, exactly the same money, exactly the same amount of resource. He's working his ass off. He's like some corporate attorney that works 80 hours a week. He's on call 7 days a week, right? He's on the phone all day long with clients. It's all active income.
Well, let's pause for a second. There's two different elements here, right? The first one, which you've correctly identified, is the way that the left sells it is through the framing of it as
all passive
the rich
income.
person, generating passive income by sitting on their wealth or their ass while their stock portfolio goes up, right?
Yeah, and that seems unfair.
Right. Which I agree with you is not generally the case about how people make money. And that is not fair, right? That's so, but we both agree. So we can take that and we can shelve it because we both agree that's not real or fair. The second moral question, the one that I'm trying to get at here is if you, in terms of the quote moral question of it, why is it more moral that you have a person like, let's say you have an attorney who works, an 80-hour week and they make, however much money they make and they have to pay the 40% taxes on it. And then you have the CEO who, works 80 hours a week, the same amount, works just as hard as the lawyer. And they make a bunch of money through, stock options and they have to pay only half the tax rate that the
No,
lawyer does, right?
look,
And
if you,
that's the question. Why does
yes.
why does from a moral question, why should capital gains be taxed less than income?
Look, I've said this. I literally think there should be a different tax bracket for rent seekers, for people who are making passive income and people who are making active income. We just need to find some metric to measure that by, because we're completely going off of the wrong thing if we're just going by income, because you don't know how that income was generated.
I agree. That's fine, but that's not addressing what I'm saying. I'm saying if you have two different people that are working at both same levels of difficulty and hardness or whatever,
right? They
both
should be
making a bunch of
taxed the
money.
same. Yes.
Why are they not taxed the same? That's the
They
question.
should be taxed the same. Yes.
But they're not.
Yes, I know.
Okay. Well,
that's the
okay.
problem that we both agree that we need to fix that problem. My problem with the policy is that other people are going to get caught in the crossfire.
No, but they're not. Because if you raise the capital gains tax to the same level as the income tax, that would solve that problem.
Right.
Would it not? People are taxed the same?
Yeah, yes.
From a moral, now to be clear, I'm only talking about from a moral level. I don't think, I'm guessing, that's why I keep saying that these moral questions, the way these taxes are talked about morally is probably stupid because it's probably not a moral question. It's what's better for the economy overall question. And having the capital gains tax be lower than the income tax creates a behavior in how money moves around our economy that's probably beneficial to everyone overall. And that's why the capital gains tax is much lower.
Well, and a lot of elderly people live off their stock portfolios and stuff like that. So they're also being taxed at a lower rate. I mean,
right.
That's part of the equation as well.
That could be, I'm guessing that could be like one of those like after effects. I'm guessing the original reason for it was there's a specific behavior and incentive the government's trying to get people to invest in the stock market, invest in companies in a specific way. And that's why the capital gains tax is lower.
Right. Yeah. But I'm strictly talking about income. And she did say,
right,
all income, 46%.
But see, that would be that's I think how the right should frame it is people, I hear too many people on the right get sucked into arguing sort of the way that you're arguing the moral question about the taxation. And I don't think you're ever going to win that argument ever.
Oh yeah. Look, this is why I said you gotta say when taxation is theft. Like just as soon as you say all taxation is theft, it's like people they tune out, they ignore you. They're like, okay, we're not having a serious conversation here. Adults understand taxation is a necessary evil. I understand, if you're young and you're not making a lot of money and they're taking money out of your paycheck, oh God, it's horrible. I've been there. Like I'm barely trying to get by and I'm seeing this big number on my paycheck that I'm like, that money I could use. Exactly, yeah, exactly. So I get it. Like when I was younger, I would get most of that money back at the end of the year because I wasn't making enough money to be in a high tax bracket. But it's still, it feels horrible. Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. Anyway.
Hit it.
We can talk about people who have inherited wealth, and that's an entirely different story. But a lot of people who have worked their whole lives have put money into the stock market as a savings plan to make sure that they're saving money over time and allowing that to appreciate. That's money they already paid average wage taxes on. And that then goes into capital gains. Our stock market has done very well because you have capital gains taxes that are lower. It's an incentive for people to invest. If you take that
Right,
away,
exactly.
what's the potential in terms of what it means for the market?
Again, look, this new rate would apply to a very small sliver of folks. On the capital gains side, you're looking at people who are making over $1 million each year, on which this higher rate would apply. And look, I hear the same argument over and over again. You heard it when President Clinton was running, when President Obama was running, when President Biden was running, that these are radical ideas that Democrats are pursuing. But if you just look at the scoreboard over that time period, out of the 51 million jobs that were created during that period, 50 million came under Democratic presidencies. And if you look at the stock market specifically, since you asked about that, the average annual return under Democratic presidencies have been higher than under Republican presidencies.
This is a stupid argument because you're talking about changing the policy. You had a different policy under those Democratic presidents.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, that says the old policy was working great. Why do you want this new policy?
Mm-hmm.
So I really think this idea that Democrats are pursuing radical policies is a myth that's being perpetuated largely by very rich people who like the fact that Republicans will cut their taxes and Democrats won't.
Let me address that very point. Andrew Lotz, in this Wall Street Journal story, says, and he's an associate director at the Bipartisan Policy Center, says, these would represent sea changes in how we have taxed wealthy individuals and families over the last several decades. And that's not an argument for or against them, but these are sea changes. This is not what we've seen under President Clinton or others. And a big part of that is taxing unrealized gains. Under the Harris plan, capital gains for households making at least $1 million would be taxed at ordinary income. Unrealized capital gains above $5 million per person exclusion would be taxed at death. That tax would have some exemptions for family businesses, but you are talking about taxing unrealized gains at levels that we haven't seen in the past, have never seen before.
What was that about taxed at death, though?
What, the estate tax?
It said these unrealized gains would be taxed at death. Can I just back up a bit? I don't know if my keys work in this new thing.
Here, you want me? I can do it.
Yeah. Do you? Oh,
this is not what we've seen under President Clinton or others. And a big part of that is taxing unrealized gains. Under the Harris plan, capital gains for households making at least $1 million would be taxed at ordinary income. Unrealized capital gains above $5 million per person exclusion would be taxed at death.
Unrealized gains.
Oh, wait. So wait a minute.
Yeah. That's a huge difference.
That changes that changes the entire thing.
Yeah, it does, obviously.
That's not what it said when I read the thing yesterday. Or was that Sunday or yesterday? I don't know. Whenever I read the paper that this came from.
That didn't say death. This is the first time I'm hearing the death thing. So it becomes like an estate tax. You're forced to sell the portfolio when the person dies and distribute the money. IRAs are a lot of times passed down because you can pass down an IRA to your kids and not sell the stock, and they can take it out a little at a time and not pay a huge tax penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So they give you, I think, 10 years to take the money out. So this would change that and make it so that you had to basically sell it all at once and pay the capital gains.
Well, I mean, but now I'm curious because
they would be realized gains, though, not unrealized. So
yeah, but like whether that completely changes the entire conversation.
Yeah, that's why I was like, death? What?
Because if it's you have to pay every year, then that's like a very different thing than there's like a one-time payment of whatever one that's passed on.
This is like a backdoor estate tax. That's what they're going for.
Well, but
didn't Republicans get rid of the estate tax? They did, didn't they?
They tried to. There was like 1 year I think where it got suspended. So it's like everyone kill off your rich, family members that year. But it's existed.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
It was like 2011 or so. I just looked at it like yesterday for some reason. I forget why. It was like 1 year where it was suspended, and then every other year it's been around for a while.
Okay, well, this changes everything. I'm glad we went to and looked at the actual clip.
But I don't know if she's correct because I don't know. I've never seen this mentioned anywhere else.
Yeah, she's reading, but she could easily be reading from producer notes. Who knows?
Or she's wrong. I mean, she could be right, and she just has information that every article I've ever read about this doesn't say. I don't know the answer to the question. So
That tax would have some exemptions for
That is
family
very
businesses, but you are talking about taxing unrealized gains. That tax would have some exemptions for family businesses, but you are talking about taxing unrealized gains at levels that we haven't seen in the past, have never seen before.
Well, I'm glad you brought up unrealized gains, because I think it's an important clarification, because there's multiple proposals here.
Okay.
The tax on unrealized gains applies only to people with assets over $100 million. And just to emphasize how small a group that is, that's about less than 1/2 of 1% of Americans, about 60,000 people in the entire country. And yeah, I think it's pretty reasonable, given the flaw.
See, that's what's annoying too, is because like I don't think, I mean, even I don't know if it's like on death, that's a different conversation. But if it is like an annual tax, I agree this is stupid. It doesn't make sense. And yet I saw so many people on social media like lying about it, acting like every single person who owns a home is going to have to pay,
Oh,
you
I
know,
know. Yeah.
the 25% on the asset of their home. And I'm like, I mean, people have to know they're lying, right?
Look, we're only targeting 60,000 Americans. Okay.
That doesn't make it right. It still doesn't make sense.
Oh, I know. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this
Flawed
is, and it just, I go back to the example of the resources.
Mhm.
Like if those resources are tied up and that the whatever person it is, those 60,000 people are not really using that money to drive up inflation, all of a sudden, if you disperse it among, 300 million Americans, it is going to drive up inflation, right? It's the
Of course.
same exact effect as if you send everybody pandemic money, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. Each individual has a different inflation impact. And I just, without looking at that specifically, you don't know if this would drive inflation.
System that we have right now for capital taxation, that people in that very exclusive category be able to be taxed on unrealized gains. And there's all sorts of exceptions and deferrals within that proposal to make sure that if you're a founder of a company, you don't have to sell your company in order to pay those taxes right away. You can spread it out over an extended period of time, and so on. And again, it comes back to the fact.
But that's important, because there were people that are saying this isn't going to affect, startups and businesses because they won't have to pay. But he didn't say that they don't have to pay.
No.
He said that they have to pay. They just have to pay over they get some extension of period of time. So this still seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, it's going to totally suppress business generation. This is so bad.
That we have a system where folks in that category are paying much lower rates over the course of their lifetime than people who earn ordinary wage income, who are making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. And look, I just think it's important to step back and realize why we're doing this. Over the last 20 years, we have seen an erosion of the tax code. If you go back to where we were in 2000, before the Bush tax cuts, about 20% of GDP was coming in revenue. Thanks to the Bush tax cuts and the Trump tax cuts, we're now closer to 16%. And so fundamentally, what we have right now is a revenue problem. If we went back to the tax code we had in 2000, the national debt would actually be going down. And those tax cuts have largely gone to the very, very rich. So all these policies would do.
First of all, those tax cuts are expiring next year anyway. So it's going to be something
and
that
it's
has
a
to be dealt
spending
with.
problem, Parad. It's 23% of GDP is being spent. It's usually about 19 or 20%. And it's the long-term average is not 20% of revenues. It's about 18%. And we're at about 17%.
Joe, I just got to disagree on. I got to point something out. Which is
you can't disagree on actual numbers.
No, I got to say that, spending is going up.
What's the long-term spending average? And Harris wants to spend more than what we're spending right now. So what's the long-term percentage of spending to GDP? What do you say it is?
Our spending is going. Everyone knew this back in 2000, that spending would go up on programs like Social Security and Medicare because the baby boomer generation would be retiring. If we had the tax code that we had in 2000, if you look at what's called non-defense discretionary spending, which is spending other than Social Security, Medicare, and other than defense, that is actually historically low right now. So,
but overall,
the source of our
23%.
problem. No, because of Social Security and Medicare and so on. And those are anticipated increases because people are retiring.
This is what they never say about, we're at the peak of the baby boomer boom. So also at the other end, more baby boomers are dying and their Social Security is being canceled. So Social Security from this point on will go down. Like less Social Security will be being paid out because those people are also dying.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we're about $35 trillion in debt right now. $8 trillion of that, about a quarter of it, came under the Trump presidency. And there was an article actually I saw on your own website, CNBC, last night, saying that the Trump plan would significantly increase the deficit.
Bharat, there's a big difference. There's a big difference with CNBC.com.
But just to get to the point, the Trump plan would significantly increase the deficit a lot more than the Harris plan. So if you're out there and you're concerned about the deficit, it sounds like you guys are. It sounds like a good reason to vote for Harris.
How laughable.
The Harris campaign has yet to give specifics on the vice president's plan to ban price gouging or
Did we roll into another video?
Oh, yeah, here, you can turn this off. Okay, so I found another one of these, like I found a gigantic document. It's the budget of the United States government fiscal year 2025 from the White House, and it talks about that $100 million bill, if they call it the billionaire tax.
Okay.
And it doesn't say the death thing. So I'm going to say that she is incorrect until I haven't seen a single thing that has said that there was on death. So I'm going to say that she's incorrect or was misreading it or something. So
all of this talk is just testing the waters on policy until the policy paper drops. It's just, who knows?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't think they're going to drop this. I think they're going to keep pushing it.
Maybe so.
I think they're going to keep pushing it. Yeah, because I think these policies, they're going to hit that moral thing that I talked about. You know, it's going to be perceived as like, oh, these are a bunch of rich millionaire people who are sitting around just generating wealth, doing nothing, and they should be taxed while I'm out there, you know, working hard. Right? That's how they're going to sell it, and I think that's going to be politically effective. Now, if Harris wins, I think there's about a 1% chance any of this shit will ever be implemented at all. But that's a different question entirely.
Yeah. I want to see the detail on the housing stuff. I don't want to.
Well, the housing thing has a much higher likelihood of coming into practice because both the Democrats and Republicans want that more houses to be built. So,
well, I don't know that the Republicans want to see the Democrats build more houses, though. Well, they want that win for themselves. So.
I mean, that is a fair point. Obviously, whoever wins, the other side is going to try to prevent them from doing anything just because of normal politicking.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. But I do want to see the details because that's what I'm curious about. Like this policy, the logic of this policy is unsound. I mean, not many people know that, obviously. They picture money being resources. So they just think all those resources, like they see a big vault of resources inside somebody's bank account. They're like, look, they're just hoarding all of those resources. When the resources really aren't generated until the money is deployed. So this is why the GDP number is so interesting, because the GDP is gross domestic product. It's actually the production of those resources, right?
Right.
Yeah. So how many resources do we produce every year? Can we produce more? Do we have enough resources to produce 3 million more homes?
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
I use the bathroom real quick so you can read some supers.
Okay. I'll do that. Super chats. Let's see here. I saw some super chats come in. Let's see if people are joining the conversation. We got Good Faith Gary here for 20. Actually, I'm going to save the $20 for Sitch when he gets back because he's a better reader than me. And he'll also want to respond. Jack of Spades, member for 29 months. Look at this. I know you say not to view taxes through a moral lens, but I do find it gross when taxes are levied when no transaction occurred, including real estate. In what situation are you talking about? The no transaction occurs. Because even if you're getting paid by somebody, the transaction is you selling your labor for a wage. That's interesting. Yeah, no. I think taxation is totally moral, but look, I define morality as a set of rules that binds individuals into a cooperative community. Obviously, rules around taxation are rules around how you personally as an individual are going to pay to support the moral community you are a part of. In this case, it's a nation. And so, of course, everybody's moral intuitions are activated when we're talking about taxation. Ideas of fairness,
Of course, that's what it's all
specifically,
about.
are being
Yeah.
activated. Hey, and Peter Boghossian finally got I went to, I believe it was USC or UCLA. I can't remember. Might have been USC. He did one of those street epistemology things, and my friend Reed Nicewonder said, "Hey, why don't you come by and do it with us?" And it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and the video turned out really good. We were actually arguing, and I argue it's like an hour-long video. I'm arguing with Peter Boghossian over the definition of morality. I say the best definition for morality is a set of rules that binds individuals into a cooperative community, and he disagrees with me, and we argue over that for like
What's
an
his
hour.
definition? Do you remember?
It was super frustrating, and I don't know if he was just arguing with me to argue with me to make it more interesting, or I guess he fundamentally disagrees. Like he did not think morality had anything to do with rules. And I'm like, Peter, I mean, come
What
on,
the fuck else would it be? I don't know.
the
what
Ten
you mean.
Commandments.
Right.
They're literally commandments. What are they commanding
Right.
you to do? They're like,
Yeah.
you say, follow these rules or else. Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's super interesting, and it's supposed to drop on Friday. So subscribe to Peter Boghossian's channel if you want to check it out.
Okay.
So I didn't get very far. I only read I
want to read some of these, and then I want to talk about the upcoming Kamala Harris interview that we're finally.
Oh
getting.
yes, of course. Oh my goodness.
But you read it? Yeah, no, that's the question, and I know what Jack Spade is. Not to look at through a moral lens. Do you find it gross when taxes are levied when no transaction occurs?
Yeah, I don't know when that is, including real estate. Maybe you're talking about if you like inherit a piece of property and you have to pay some sort of
that would be a transaction. What do you mean?
Taxes. Yeah, it is a transaction. So
you made money. Is that? I guess it depends on what you mean by transaction. So
there's two ways that you can think of inheritance tax. You can think of it as it's income for the individual that's receiving it, right? But nobody wants to think of it that way because they don't want to get taxed on it. They want to think of it as it's already been taxed. Yeah, my mom or dad got taxed.
And I was looking this up yesterday. I don't even remember why, but I was like looking up the estate tax stuff for some reason yesterday. Oh, I guess it was probably in relation to all this stuff because it was like it's something like it's like a single parent can give a child $10 million without being taxed, and if you're married, it can be doubled to like 22 million or something, or 24
million. I wish
million,
my parents would give me 10 million.
So without being taxed, which I didn't know that there was that doubling effect. So
I'll take it.
Cameraman 502 for 18 months says, doesn't anyone in this race actually want to win? I've never seen such self-sabotage from both sides.
I agree.
I don't know if I agree because it's hard to tell things that bother me and I don't like and bother you and you don't like. It's hard to tell whether that's going to actually be good or effective for the candidate sometimes. So
it's such a mixed bag because look, Trump did deliver on the tax cut, and I like tax cuts. I'm not going to lie. Like, I may be audience captured by tax cuts. That might be my thing.
We got to get that no tax on tips and super chats. We got to get super chats to count as tips.
Right. So I'm super conflicted because obviously there's a bunch of policies I like that Trump has, and there's a bunch of policies I don't like. And same with Kamala. Like, I really want the build more housing. Like, I'm so stoked that Democrats have finally realized, the problem is we don't have enough stuff. We have plenty of money. We need the stuff.
Yeah. Stop giving people money. Start making more stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Good Faith Gary, thanks so much for $20. Says, is there a progression in the taxation like our income tax, or is it at 99 million you pay nothing and 100 million you pay? Just seems like it would incentivize bad behavior or cause unintended consequences. I believe it's not progressive at all.
The way it works is and this is the way tax brackets works. If you're It's like $0 to $20,000 is taxed. And look, I'm just making these up. These aren't the actual tax brackets, but that 0 to 20,000 is taxed at a certain rate, say like 5%. Then every dollar above 20,000 to like 40,000 is taxed at a different rate. It's like 10%, right? So they're the graduated rates. So you're paying a different amount of tax on the money that you earn from $1 to a certain number of dollars.
Right. So
you
like,
get that, right?
Yeah. So when we talked about this the other day, so like the 25% tax on unrealized gains over 100 million, it's not once you get $1 over 100 million, you have to pay 25% on everything.
On the 100 million, yeah.
Yeah, you have to pay 25% on everything over the 100
above
million.
that.
But
Yes.
it's not graduated. It's 0 to 100 million. There's nothing. And then once you get over 100 million, anything above that, it gets hit with this 25% tax.
But you are paying different tax rates because that 100 million still applies the regular tax rates.
Well, no, but it's unrealized, so you're not paying any taxes on it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the unrealized case, we're talking about that.
Right. But you are correct. It would probably create weird. The fact that it's such a drastic cutoff from 0 to 25 will probably create weird behaviors that I'm not smart enough economically to foresee. So
I don't think anyone knows. A lot of these policies, you kind of gotta see what happens.
Well, it's funny, like with taxation and investment and all the government and rich people, they're basically in this arms race of like the government taxes something, then the rich people and the businesses figure out a way around it, and then the government figures out a way around what's around it, and then the businesses and rich people find a way around. It's like this continual back and forth of like trying to tax them and then finding loopholes. It's pretty funny. So
the reason why it drives me crazy is because we're arguing over financial assets. It's fucking paper. Like,
I know.
Why is so much energy going into arguing over the amount of money somebody owns on a piece of paper? It's not real assets.
Well, it is and it isn't. Okay. Because on one hand, it isn't because of all the stuff that you're thinking about from the MMT perspective. On the other hand, it is a real asset because there could you can't print infinite amount of this imaginary asset without deflating the value. And so that's the way it's being perceived, is like the stake, the cut of the pie that people own, even if it's based off of points, those points still matter.
They don't matter if they're not in the game, though. That's the thing. Like, it only matters when they become part of the economy and are out there generating, potential inflation.
Right.
Like they're circulating in the economy.
They're sort of part of, when things are in unrealized gains, they are somewhat part of the game. They do have an impact on the economy overall. When you look at, say, okay, well, Amazon's worth X amount of money, right? Even if whatever that stock value is sort of somewhat real, somewhat imaginary, it still has an impact on things.
Right. Yeah. Well, a lot of times this like the stock value is like 20 times earnings. And I would say like the company in real resources is really just worth what it's earning, right?
Well, I would say
the money it brings in each quarter.
Maybe you should think of it like, what is it called? Potential versus kinetic energy. Like,
right.
You have the rock at the top of the mountain. It has all this potential energy, but it's not moving. And then once that's rolling down, it's kinetic. So it's like the unrealized is the potential energy in the rock. So it's still,
right.
It still exists, right? Just because it's in motion at the time.
I see the potential energy as inflation causing, because
it could be.
Like if you just helicopter money in, even if it's from some rich person's bank account where it's basically not really generating inflation because it's not being.
Well, no, you're saying that the potential energy is not inflationary because it's just sitting kind of in an unused or a somewhat unused potential state. And then if you were to vacuum all that money and then give it to people, they start spending it. That increases the amount of money in circulation, thus increasing inflation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. And that is a good point. That would definitely have an inflationary effect.
This is why they keep track of the money supply in M1, M2, M3. They're basically graduated levels of liquidity. So if it's cash, it's like, okay. And suddenly if the cash doubles overnight, you're like, oh, okay, we're going to get real inflation in commodities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If it's bonds and stocks and stuff like that that's not liquid, you're like, okay, well, that's not going to generate. It might generate inflation in stocks, right?
Right. Your Ogre Lord for $20. Thanks so much. Says, love your frequent content. It's helping me get through a busy tax season. A-Team forever. S-Class is pretty good too, I guess. Well, thank you.
Nice. Thank you. Are you? I guess you must be a tax accountant.
There you go. Lorfsor for 22 euros. Thank you. Says, tax on unrealized gains isn't tax on all wealth. It's a tax on the increase of net worth on paper in the fiscal year. So if the stock you own rises in value by 10 million, you'd pay 2.5, 25%, no matter how much you own. Yeah, I guess we understand that. I don't know what that was in relation to, but
the problem is if it's down 25% next year, do they give you the money back?
do they give it back? Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or do you like accrue negative tax credits or something? I don't know.
Look, and this is people do this. You probably know this if you're working on people's taxes. Like sometimes people, if they make a lot of income one year, they're like, oh my God, I'm in a high tax bracket. Let me go and sell my stock losers,
right,
so that I can have a loss on these stocks, right? I bought 50 grand worth of Amazon and it's only worth 25 grand now. So they sell the loser. Amazon's a bad example because I can't imagine Amazon being down that much, but so you've got a $25,000 loss on this stock, right? You can offset that against your income, and now you're in a lower tax bracket.
right.
That's a thing people do. So look, yeah. How does that work in the unrealized gains world?
Well, you'd have to, I guess you'd have to sell off enough. Well, I don't know, because would the unrealized gains, could you detract from it by selling off your losses or having losses? Does that, detract from the amount? It should, theoretically. So I guess you have the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
The Rooster for $5 says, Kamala has officially lost the mail vote with this unrealized gains tax plan. Many of all races invest in the stock market and will vote against her. I don't know if this will have a substantial impact on that, because I mean, I think most people that would vote for Kamala anyway on the left, they're not going to perceive this negatively, because they're going to shrug and say, well, I don't make $100 million, so why do I care? I think that's going to be the average person's reaction to this plan.
I think people judge based on the feasibility of the policy actually passing. The people who vote on policy, which is probably very few. Most people are voting on tribal reasons, and this is not going to affect those people's vote. But it is the kingmakers that will switch parties that are deciding, and a lot of them are thinking basically on policy.
Well, I think what this is, and this is kind of interesting, I think part of what this is, this wealth tax, they're trying to lure back in the far left people that are super triggered about Gaza.
Yeah. Palestine.
And I think this is an attempt to do that. I don't know if it's going to work, because, all the far left internet people, in the socialist camp and the very progressive camp, they all talk about these economic issues, but then all that stuff seems to have been completely hijacked by the Gaza situation. And I don't know if going back to these economic issues is really going to appeal to them on any emotional level.
It's so true. I was just thinking that's exactly what's going on. So
I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work, but I think that's the intention.
They're like, how do we get the commies back?
Right.
Oh, exactly. I know.
Wealth tax. Yeah. Slenders. Yeah. Slenders for $5 says the choke point in the economy isn't production capacity, it's labor supply, which is at an all-time low. This alone would cause runaway inflation.
Well, what is the unemployment rate? Because unemployment is people who want a job and can't find one. So that's that's part of the labor force, obviously.
It says this is 4.3 right now.
Okay, so it's pretty low. But this is the argument.
Up, though, so
yeah. Well, they're trying to get more people unemployed to fight inflation. The idea is people have too much money and it's driving up prices.
Yeah, right.
So if you throw those people out of work,
right.
They're basically back to the pizza example. They're saying, hey, let's take all the money away from these 10 people that want pizza and we'll get the pizza back to a normal price, right? We'll take those 10 people out of the market. So, but look, I look at that 4.5% unemployment rate and I think that's a lot of people that could be put to work that we're just not employing because of we're trying to fight inflation.
William Vance for 26 months of discipline equals freedom. Thank you. Says, I know you guys are big on the whole replace JD Vance with RFK as being only an upward move, but you're forgetting your height. Conservatives highly value loyalty, and this would be a betrayal move. Well, since your name is William Vance, I'm going to assume that you're JD Vance's cousin. So you're biased here. But no, it's a good question. I don't think that's going to matter because, at least from what I'm seeing, especially in this current political climate, the number one thing motivating both Democrats and Republicans is the desire to win.
Yep.
And that's really all that matters. So, especially, so you have the desire to win, number one is the primary thing. And then you have number two, Trump has this ability to basically push almost, not anything, but almost anything, and Trump supporters will support it. And it's hard for me to imagine. I know there will be some people that will complain if RFK replaces Vance, but it's hard for me to imagine that there would be someone who's like, oh, I was going to vote for Trump, but now I'm not going to because he got rid of JD Vance. I would be pretty surprised if that was the case.
Yeah, I did think of the loyalty thing. I try to think of a way that they could rationalize it because that's what will happen. And they're also, I mean, there's a lot of people that support Trump that maybe aren't necessarily conservative. They're just on board because he's a celebrity, right? They're
or
like,
just
he's my guy and I like him.
Or they just want to shake up the system.
That too, anti-establishment, the ultimate.
And also, it's not going to be like, if JD Vance is replaced, it's not going to be like some big blow up where Trump is like, fuck you, get out of here. Like JD Vance is going to make up some excuse or something where he bows out, you know.
Oh, you think so? Oh, I don't.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be some like messy breakup. I think it'd be something that, you know, they're going to have a talk with Vance. Vance is going to agree to bow out for some bullshit reason. And so it's not going to look like this horrible mess. You think it's going to be some like horrible, like, get the fuck out of here, you suck? No way. That would look bad. I agree. That would look bad if it was some messy breakup. That would be a terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to grab attention, so yeah, a messy breakup might grab more attention. You want to kind of hit the median, though. It can't be terrible. It can't be a totally. How do you? Then it looks like, do you think they can handle the perception, or Trump wants a perception that JD Vance is leaving him?
It'll be, yeah, because the way the news will talk about it is Vance is stepping out, but everyone knows that it's really like he was pushed out. Like that's how the story will be reported by literally everyone. It doesn't matter what the fuck JD Vance said. It doesn't matter if aliens come down from space and abduct JD Vance's wife and he has to go on a crusade to find her. People are like, oh, yeah, right, whatever. He just did it because he was doing bad in the polls, right? It doesn't matter. Everyone will perceive it that way, but they'll still have this sort of, you know, JD Vance presumably still wants to have a career in politics. He still wants Trump to be an ally. You know, he doesn't want to he doesn't want to piss off Trump or the Trump base. He doesn't go out like a sore loser. So if they really came to him and told him that they're replacing him, I do think he would, you know, be on board with whatever way to extricate himself from the position as smoothly as possible.
Right. Well, we'll see.
So
a lot of people, I guess a lot of our fans like RFK, so they want.
I think it would be
actually,
a good play.
they like Vance. Well, a lot of our fans like RFK, and a lot of our fans like RFK because we talk smack about RFK's voice, and people get mad in the comments, and they also get mad about the Vance replacement. So they obviously like Vance.
Here's how you know that my position on this is uncolored personally. I don't like JD Vance, and I don't like RFK. I don't like either of them. I don't like either of them at all. So I'm looking at this from just a pure strategy, like what would make the most sense. JD Vance has not been able to gain traction at all. RFK does have traction. He does appeal to a number of voters that Trump doesn't currently have, so it makes sense.
And Sitch is the one with the VDS, an unfortunate term, but it is what it is. I do not have VDS. I have no problem with Vance. I think strategically it would be a good move to mix up the campaign and capture news and probably get a stronger voting coalition for a win on election night.
And to have that name on the ballot, the Trump
Yeah,
Kennedy name,
look.
is just people don't realize how powerful that name is just for like the amount of people that don't really follow politics.
And I don't know how to get around this, but like Sitch and I had a lengthy discussion about the strategy of this, and that is being interpreted by a lot of people in the audience as this is what we want to happen. Which I mean, I don't care if it happens or not. I just think strategically it would be a good move, right?
Well, there's a weird thing. Like most people that talk about politics,
They want
talk
some
about
outcome, yeah.
Yeah, they talk about it specifically like this is what they want, and then they talk themselves and their audience into how everything they want is actually the most brilliant thing in the world, right?
Right.
And I think that we're sort of unique in that we don't actually do that. We're just trying to, some other people do, but most people don't do this. I'm just trying to look at like what I think would make the win for, or would be maybe not win, but definitely I think would be a better chance for Trump to win in that situation because it's a thing people are talking about.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't fucking like RFK. In fact, one of the stories I want to talk about today was, do you know what a contrail is?
Yeah, of course. Don't tell me he's fallen for the contrail.
So a contrail,
Conspiracy.
if you don't know what a contrail is, that's when,
condensation trail is what it's short
yes,
for.
a condensation trail. It's when you see an airplane kind of flying by in the sky, and they kind of leave those like white little like fluffy cloud things in the sky.
Condensation,
condensation forming on the exhaust, blah blah blah. It makes these little, when the conditions are right. So you don't see them always. The weather conditions have to be just so to create this slickly little contrails. So it turns out that RFK believes in the chemtrail conspiracy. Okay,
right.
This is the idea that
No way.
those little contrails that you see in the sky are not actually caused by condensation. It's actually a conspiracy where the government or someone has airplanes that are filled with evil chemicals that are meant to kill us, or to kill us in some fashion. Here, I'll send you the tweet. You can
that's to lower the testosterone levels of the men. So basically, they put a bunch of estrogen into the jet fuel, and it forms this estrogen cloud that goes over the city.
Right.
And the next thing you know, half of New York City is trans.
There you go. There you go. And this is all some sort of government conspiracy. You know, the whole thing's fucking honestly retarded. So, anyway, so there was a tweet where this person put out, they said, and I sent it to you if you want to bring it up. It says, quote, "I call them tanker terminators. We are paid more than any other pilot." So apparently, okay, get this. We have a pilot who's claiming that they fly the evil government planes filled with chemicals. Okay. And even though this person says that they're convinced the majority of them are remotely operated, even though obviously these planes have been creating contrails for many, many years. And RFK Jr. responded to this tweet the other day, and he said, "We're going to stop this crime." So there you go. RFK believes in the chemtrail conspiracy. So you think I'm biased in terms of wanting RFK on a ticket? I don't actually like RFK at all. I think he's kind of a fucking idiot, but I do think it would make more sense and be better for Trump to choose him from a strategic perspective. So there you go.
That is kind of insane.
Yeah.
We're going to stop this crime.
Yep.
So do you know also, I don't know where RFK is at on climate change. I don't know if he thinks climate change is a hoax, but actually they did a big study after September 11th when all the air traffic was grounded, remember? And the skies cleared up. There was no condensation trails for like a week, and the temperatures
increased.
Yeah. So they increased during the day and they were lower at night. So they did this study and they found out that basically condensation trails are like artificial clouds, and they're kind of reversing the global warming by reflecting some of the heat radiation from the sun back into outer space.
Right, right.
So if you get rid of them, you actually increase the global temperatures.
Right,
So
right.
it's not the contrails are actually a good thing in reversing climate change. So
Right. Interesting.
they've actually talked about doing this is one of the ideas on the table is to increase artificial clouds to basically reverse instead of worrying about the CO2, we just put more artificial clouds in the air, which is
It
an interesting idea.
it would be hilarious because I know Trump has talked about if if he wins, he's gonna give RFK the ability to like look into all the deep state conspiracies and
Oh
shit,
my,
about like who killed JFK and all this. It would be hilarious if like Trump wins and he does this and RFK looks in all this shit and he's like, oh, it turns out there's literally nothing there. Though no one would ever believe it because they say, well, the government just deleted all the important information before Trump won the presidency. So it doesn't really matter.
none of this stuff
But
can ever be proven.
yeah, it can never be proven or disproven. So, you just kind of laugh at it.
Look at
Uh,
that. All these blockers
there you
blocking
go.
all that sunlight, reflecting
Good
it
for
back
them.
into outer space.
Good for them.
Beautiful. It's too bad about the estrogen
I
seeding, but
know. I
whatever.
know. Right. Whatever. Doll Ben for 7 months says bureaucracy extends to support the ever expanding bureaucracy. I mean, that is true. M8566 for $5 says, is it just me or has Adam been on fire the last couple months? There you go. Look at that.
Nice. That's very
Slate
nice of you to say.
Slate King for $10 says capital gains are taxed less because the money used to buy the appreciating asset has already been taxed. So I've heard this before. The woman actually said it in that interview that we were watching. I don't agree with this concept. I think there's a conceptual problem. People do this weird thing where they view money being taxed as opposed to people. And that is sort of leads them down this wrong pathway of thinking about things being double taxed. There are ways, I forget exactly how, but we've talked about it. There are ways in which people can be double taxed unfairly. But I don't think this is I do not believe for a second that the reason capital gains is lower is for this reason. It has much more to do with trying to incentivize people to invest in the stock market and businesses to invest in things of that nature. So
Could be. That super chat is probably because I was saying taxation is theft.
well, the way to think about the double tax would be like, okay, say you, Adam, you make $1,000 from your job, right?
I
And
like
you
to
take
make
that $1,000 from your job, you take that $1,000 that you made from your job working as, a dog groomer, okay? And you
Why am
buy
I'm a dog? Okay.
right, right. And you buy 1,000 shares of Amazon stock, okay, when they're
Right.
$1 a pop. And then
I
the stock,
wish, but go
right, I know,
ahead.
I'm just saying. And then the stock price goes up to $2,000 and you sell all your shares and you have 2 grand. Okay. The way, at least my understanding, the way the capital gains tax works is you don't pay off of the entire $2,000. You just have to pay from the increase of $1,000 that you
That is
made.
exactly right. Yeah.
Right. So if you had to pay from the entire pot of it, then yes, it would be a double tax, but you don't. You just pay on the increase. That's why it's not a double tax.
And look, if I held on to the stock for a year and I made that $1,000, it's taxed differently than if I hold on to it for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to simplify the
But
concept.
that point shows you the incentive is to get you to tie your money up in the stock market, right?
Right.
Which is what you want people to do so they're not spending that money driving inflation, right?
If you want to lower inflation, that would be definitely a way to do it. Yeah.
If you didn't have that incentive there, people might be flipping stocks right and left and using the cash to buy, who knows.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because I hadn't really thought about it, but that's another good reason why you had, I think, in that time period of, the 40s through the 70s, really high income tax on the top earners and really low capital gains tax is because they wanted them to shove their money into the market as opposed to just buying a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
So, and that would lower inflation to some amount. Stug for $5, thank you so much, says tax people on the number of friends they have. The fewer friends you have, the more you pay. This will incentivize socialization and end loneliness.
I love that. That's
I
a
love it.
great idea.
It's a good idea. Fondue for $5 says it's so tough to catch the Daily Show to. It's so tough to catch the Daily Show to competition because of my job, but I can't wait for my new favorite anime. Kamala can't communicate.
Oh, I know. It's coming, guys. Get ready.
Yeah, there's a anime. I forget what the character's name is. That's so and so can't communicate. So that's what they're
That's
referencing.
that's another gripe I have with you guys. Well, not all of you guys, obviously, but some of you. It's like yesterday we were making fun of Kamala like crazy. Like we literally brought up a clip of her stumbling her way through an interview, doing it like a million word salads.
Right.
And a bunch of people were in the comments basically saying we're just Kamala supporters and we can like all we want to do is savage Trump. It's so weird. It's so bizarre.
That's how you know you're tribal captured.
Yeah. Well, it's fun for a lot of people in the comments because I see more of you guys are arguing, like more of the Trump supporters and the Kamala supporters are arguing with one another, which is fun. I mean, that's really the kind of community we want to foster anyway. So, but it's like, look, we have not even seen the worst of Kamala yet. Like, I guess we're going to talk about it after we read some super chats. This whole, like, I'm going to do my first interview with my daddy holding my hand. Oh my God.
We could talk about it now. So the CNN has just posted yesterday that that Dana Bash has the exclusive first interview.
Right.
Okay. First interview with Kamala Harris. And it's not even, it's not even an interview with Kamala Harris alone. It's Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Okay,
and her daddy and her coach.
And I don't believe it's live. People were saying it's pre-taped too. So that's going to be fun.
How much coach face are we going to see in this interview?
Yeah, 0, because the camera's going to know when to cut to Tim and when
Dana
not to.
Bash is going to know.
Yeah. It's funny because when I saw this, I tweeted out, I said, with Tim Walz, does she need a chaperone? Which I thought was kind of
great.
Funny. And then Scott Jennings had a better one. He said he called Tim Walz her emotional support animal.
Oh my God. This is beautiful.
And it was funny because I tweeted this out and there's like these random, I don't know who the fuck these people are. There's like random, there's like random TDS people who are like, oh my God, if you ever insult Harris in any way, you're like a Republican. And they got super triggered that I tweeted this out. And I'm like, okay, I'm just calling it how I see it, my friend. Like,
really?
You have this weird thing where people are saying Kamala Harris can't speak, she can't do interviews. And then her first interview is a pre-tape with her VP candidate, which is very strange. People were like, yeah, but Donald Trump, he did an interview with JD Vance. Okay, it's the same thing. It's like, no, it's not the same thing. Donald Trump has done a bajillion interviews by himself and a bajillion press conferences. Everyone knows how he speaks. I mean, he doesn't speak well, but everyone knows how he speaks. It's not really like an open question.
Donald Trump did that CNN town hall, which was a completely hostile environment without anyone sitting next to him. I mean, that's complete bullshit.
And he did the interview with the black journalist people.
Of course. Yes. Yeah. Look, and he expected Kamala to be there.
Right.
Yeah. Look, that's a bunch of cope. It's a massive cope.
Super ultra massive cope. So, let's see. So, that interview is going to be Thursday. So I guess we'll talk about it on Sunday. See how.
Yeah. See how bad it goes.
Yep. The Real Haltonator for $5 says the whole reason we don't tax unrealized gains is anyone who owns stocks would have to pay. It's not fair to tax people for money tied up in stock. Well, not anyone who owns stocks. It would only be, well, if by anyone you mean, because if the people that had over $100 million, them doing whatever they're going to do with their money would have some effect on the stock market overall negatively, then I guess, yes, if that's what you mean by that. Tommy Simonson for $50 dollars. Thank you so much. Says, it doesn't matter. Kamala will just lower all prices. You don't need all that money. There you go. Just lower the prices. Exactly. I like that. It's a good point.
So bad.
SB Elite for $5 says Democrats are attacking the Gold Star families of the 13 that died in Afghanistan because they invited Trump out to Arlington for a cemetery for them and took photos. Really? So I'm unfamiliar with people being attacked. I would assume that that would happen. I actually did want to talk about this story today. There was an interesting story. So a few days ago, Donald Trump visited Arlington National Cemetery, and he was like laying wreaths. And this was, I believe, the third anniversary of the pullout of Afghanistan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of, using it as to say like, Joe Biden's shitty pullout killed all these people, blah 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 blah, right?
Yeah.
And so, and also people were kind of pointing to like while Trump is visiting the cemetery and honoring the soldiers, Joe Biden was apparently on vacation on a beach, looking comatose or something. I don't know if you saw those pictures.
I did.
Yeah, they look pretty bad. So that happened, and you're like, okay, you have optics win for Donald Trump, right? And then there was this story that came out yesterday from NPR that's called Trump campaign staff had altercation with official at Arlington Cemetery. Okay. And the article
What?
says, the article says two members of Donald Trump's campaign staff had a verbal and physical altercation Monday with an official at Arlington National Cemetery. NPR has learned. A source with knowledge of the incident said the cemetery official tried to prevent Trump staffers from filming and photographing in a section where recent U.S. casualties are buried. The source said Arlington officials had made clear that only cemetery staff members would be authorized to take photographs or film the area known as Section 60. When the cemetery official tried to prevent Trump campaign staff from entering Section 60, campaign staff verbally abused. I like how it says that, verbally abused. What does that mean? And pushed the official aside, according to the source.
Wow, there was pushing.
Right, there was pushing. So that was the accusation that they were not supposed to take a photo op there, and that they did anyway against the cemetery's wishes. But then it's pretty funny. There's a statement from Trump's campaign spokesman, Steve Chung. I don't know if it's Chung or Young. I don't know how to pronounce it. Who is a very weird looking guy. I've never seen this guy before. He had a very funny response to this. I don't know if it was a good response, but a funny response. He said, the fact is that a private photographer was permitted on the premises, and for whatever reason, an unnamed individual, clearly suffering from a mental health episode, decided to physically block members of President Trump's team during a very solemn ceremony. Do you like
Wow.
I do like that. I like that Trump's campaign staff is like, yeah, he's suffering from a mental health episode. That is pretty funny. So he also says that they have prepared that they're prepared to release footage that would back up the claims. I don't know how you back up that he's suffering from a mental health episode, but that's what he said. So so that was the original part of the story. And then there was a second part of the story that came out today, which says Arlington National Cemetery has confirmed that an incident took place and that there was a report filed. So we don't know what the fuck that means.
This was just campaign staff, though. Donald Trump campaign staff, right?
Well, Trump was there too.
Yeah, but I mean, Trump wasn't involved.
Well, no, he wasn't the one doing the pushing or verbal abuse. No.
Right.
Right.
So, but it was some crazy person.
Well, no, the way the image is painted, at least from the stories, I believe, is like, okay, Trump and his staff want to go do a photo op on, where these graves are, and someone that works at there says you can't do that, and then someone from Trump's staff says fuck off. And
yeah, we're going to do it anyway. Right. And then they describe the security guard as a mentally deranged person.
Yes, right.
Which is great. I mean,
yeah, right. It's pretty funny, but I don't know if that's the best way to react to it. So apparently,
no way. Of course it's great. What are you talking about?
So the Arlington Cemetery released a statement. They said, we confirmed there was an incident and the report was filed. Federal law prohibits political campaigns or election-related activities within Army, national, military cemeteries to include photographers, content creators, or any persons attending for purposes or in direct support of a partisan's political candidate's campaign.
So it turns out he is crazy.
No. They're saying that, well, Arlington Cemetery is saying that the crazy person is, the quote, crazy person is correct.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Right.
Well, he's probably works for them, right? He's security for them.
Yeah, obviously
whatever.
They work for him. Yes, right.
I'm just saying it's like cock blocking the political campaign. What?
Right.
I thought this was America.
Right. So then in response to that, the Trump campaign has put out a statement that shows that that at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 military people that had died, and I believe I don't know if they were these specific. They're probably the specific, uh,
They're like the
graves.
families of the people that died
Right.
pulling out
The
of
graves that Trump
Afghanistan.
was laying the wreaths on, that those
Right.
families had given Trump
Permission.
explicit permission
Yeah.
to do so and wanted Trump to lay the wreaths on their graves. So
That's a
Trump is saying that,
smooth move right
right.
there.
So that's a smart counter. And then also his campaign manager, Stephen Chung, he's posted a tiny snippet of supposedly, I guess, an email that he's claiming, or at least showing the claim that the cemetery had said that they could do this beforehand. So we have sort of conflicting reports on this. So
The
it's kind of
cemetery told them they can't, and did they
he's
ask ahead of time?
well, all he did was he posted a little snippet of what looks to be an email, but we don't have the whole email, so I don't know. He said, we were granted access to have a photographer there. And it says, quote, only former President Trump may have an official photographer and or videographer outside of the main media pool. If any other attendees, DVs would like to bring media, they must arrive at 7 a.m. and be incorporated into the press pool. We recommend against bringing additional media due to limited space available in the press pool. So I
Yeah.
don't know what that means. That's kind of an out of context clip of an email, but that's the claim he's making.
This was good politics, though. The politics of it is, no former president went to see the soldiers that died from the disastrous pullout of Afghanistan because they want to sweep it under the rug. They want to hide it, right?
Yes.
Only Donald Trump thought of the families.
Right.
Went to them in their time of need. It's good politics. It's great politics. So,
No, it is, and this is like a nothing. I mean, I think this is going to be a nothing story at the end of the day. It's kind of like Trump does this good political move, which obviously is a political move. Don't get me wrong. Don't get anyone twisted. Everything a politician does is for political purposes. Where he visits the grave and he lays a wreath on it and he gets the shit on Biden, and then there's sort of this, well, no, he's a bad person because you're not supposed to take pictures there, right? So and they kind of go back and forth. So I don't think it matters, but
right.
and it is shitty. I haven't seen it, but it is shitty if people are attacking in response the family that was of the person who died
that's
or
the
people that died.
worst.
That's really gross because they're
Who
saying,
is attacking them?
well, I don't know. The super chatter said Democrats are. I'm not familiar. I haven't seen people doing that specifically, but I wouldn't be surprised. And this is what's kind of annoying is that we get closer and closer to election. Everything is like everyone loses their humanity for themselves and for everyone else. And it's just like, does this help my preferred candidate? If it does, it's good. If it hurts them, it's bad. And they just become kind of very vicious about it. So,
yeah. They say horrible things.
yep.
Nasty, nasty things.
Okay. Well, that's that story. Todd Sullivan for 28 months says, Adam, is inflation a form of tax?
I mean, you can conceptualize it as a form of tax. Obviously, you're eroding your spending power. And that's the whole purpose of tax, is to erode your spending power. The reason why we tax people is to erode their spending power so it won't cause inflation. Right?
Right, but inflation is a sort of runaway form of that. That's like not as much in the control of the government where taxation is directly.
Right. If you go back to the pizza example with the 10 people and 10 slices, like if everyone has $1,000, they're willing to pay a different amount of money for a slice of pizza than if everyone has $10, right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
I think the better example is just the MMT example. Taxation is what gives money its value in the first place, which I don't think most people like to believe. Or so you have like taxation. If it was for taxation, money would have no value.
oh yeah, of course.
Right.
But if you're that taxes figures into the equation, right? Like if you make $1,000 and you're taxed down to 500, you got a different,
of course,
metric on what you're going to pay for goods and services.
Right. Ed Wood Sr. for $10 says, if 3.5 to 4.5 million houses are built, where will local governments get the funds to build the infrastructure, sewers, power, roads, etc.? Water and power will be major issues.
Normally that stuff is paid by the builders. What happens is a building contractor gets permission to do a development, and the city makes them build all of the infrastructure along with the homes, and they incorporate that cost into selling the homes.
There you go. Jack is Spade for $5 says, to clarify, taxes with a transactional. Oh, thank you. Taxes with a transactional, i.e. sales income, CG is fine. Non-transactional personal property, UCG, etc. Real estate is exception because monopoly.
Is that for capital gains?
That was for the taxation on non-transactional thing.
We got a couple super chats after we ended the stream yesterday too. Let's not forget
remember
those.
to read that. Yes. Cameraman 502 for $5 says, I don't understand the comparison between passive incomes like dividends or even rent and unrealized gains. They aren't the same. S class equals best class. You are true. You're correct. They are not the same. But people on the left, especially, morally perceive them as very similar or the same. So, Gavatron for 7 Canadian says, exactly toy. What? Exactly toy. Who are the undecided voters at this point? Do they even exist?
Who are undecided voters?
Well,
I'm an undecided voter. What are you talking about?
There's a lot of people.
I don't
that are
know. Like,
undecided.
I can't make up my mind on this shit show yet. I mean, come
Mhm.
on.
Right.
It is funny because there are obviously, like our show is not really, I mean, we're not catering to a wide audience because I think most people that want content like this, they are decided voters and they want to go to YouTube and they want to get information about how their preferred candidate is winning. That's what they want.
Right.
My
They want
candidate
someone to
is
stroke their
winning.
hair and tell them it's all going to be good. They're going to win. And the other person is evil and stupid and failing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think in all honesty, it's impossible to tell who's going to win at this point.
Yes.
It really is. It really is. And Trump is like the Kamala bump is kind of fading now. And Trump is coming back, definitely.
Right.
And just the fact that this first interview, first of all, she said she was going to do an interview before the end of the month. I think like she's doing it on, I mean, not the last day of the month, but pretty close.
The day before the last day.
Right. And she's got to bring her dad. Okay. that is the perception that your primal brain sees this as, oh, look, it's a daddy-daughter dance, which is not presidential at all.
No.
You're supposed to be the commander in chief.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is just horror show. I think, and this is the thing, and I mean, I was listening to Young Turks yesterday, and Jank was talking about how Kamala needs to do a lot of interviews, and sure, she'll do some bad ones, but you know, if she overwhelms the press, the majority of them will be good. And I kept thinking, you don't fucking know that, Jank. You don't know that. She could be stacking up loss after loss after loss after loss. If she has crippling social anxiety and everyone around her knows it, they're terrified. Tim Walz probably is the emotional support animal here. Do you think people want to elect a president that needs a social support animal, Sitch? You think?
Of course not.
People are down for that?
Of course not.
Yeah. I think if she could, I think if she was occasionally bad, they would be running to the press. I think it's probably going to be a horror show.
It could be. Who knows?
Yeah. I remember the debate because I thought the debate between Trump and Biden was going to be a horror show, but I was completely ill prepared for how big a horror show it was. I see history repeating itself in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking this interview, well, any live interview I think is going to be pretty bad. Like they're hedging already because they're like, this was recorded, right? Look, we can do some editing. after the fact. We're in a friendly place. Sitch has already said they probably got the questions ahead of time, and they probably did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I'm trying to find the answers to the undecided vote. The only one I can find is from June, which is obviously, you know, that's a long time in presidential terms. In
There,
June, you had 20% of people that answered the poll were undecided, which is pretty massive. But that was
yeah.
obviously before Biden dropped out and all this craziness happened. So
Both
I don't know what the answer is.
the Republicans and the Democrats generally have about 30% of the electorate locked down who are decided
Right.
for the next 20 years they're going to be voting Democrat or Republican. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really arguing over those undecideds. And I think a lot of those undecideds, I mean, they're in no hurry to make up their mind.
Well,
I always ask my dad, like, who do you like? Who do you like? He's like, when's the election? I got plenty of time. Don't talk to me.
right. Right. Yeah. I mean, and you have a situation where like a lot of the quote undecideds are not necessarily people that are like, I don't know if I'm going to vote for Trump or Harris. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to vote for my preferred party or not show up. It's another
Oh,
big
that
thing
too.
too.
That is
So
an
a lot of people just
undecided.
don't show up at all because they just can't be bothered. So I don't know what the number is, but it's more than you think. When you have these margins so narrow as they are, I mean, you have like margins of 1 to 5% is deciding these elections. That makes a big difference.
And look, if you're hanging out on YouTube and you're watching David Pakman, you're watching Ben Shapiro, like you're
If you're watching
watching
any political
content on,
content, you're already in a tiny minority of people that are much more politically tapped in than like the average person.
right. Well,
So
look, all Ben Shapiro's audience is all decided voters.
right,
David Pakman's audience, all decided voters, right?
right,
They're basically catering to those people. So
of course.
this is why we have so much power on YouTube, because we're the
Ooh,
only ones that have a show dedicated to undecided voters.
wow, look at
Yeah.
that.
Yes. Destiny's audience, all decided voters.
Interesting.
Yes. Yes.
Cameraman 502 for $10 says, question, could the tax be structured so that X percentage, say 75 to 80% of your income is passive income? Y percent of that passive income will be taxed like pass-through corporations? I guess.
I mean,
I
that's
would,
an interesting solution.
right.
Right now, this isn't even really, people aren't really talking about this, which I'm just like, you're leaving so much of of what's going on here unsaid. And if it's unsaid, it's not, you can't
Mm-hmm.
really contemplate how to fix it.
Jacob Lloyd $5 says, are we going to believe the unemployment numbers when they keep revising down? I bet unemployment numbers are much higher than most people think. Well, the unemployment number is always higher than people think because there's a lot of people that aren't looking for work. But do they generally do like a secondary, tertiary, like revisement after the original advisement?
They do, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they get those numbers or how they're generated. The unemployment numbers of 4.5%, I think you said it was, are
Right.
people who are on some form of unemployment. They're people who are looking for a job and can't find one. So
Right.
a lot of people think when you talk about those people being unemployed, they think they're just not looking for a job. Like they just decided they don't want a job.
Well, there are people out there. They're not in that. They're not included in that number.
They're not included in that number. Yeah.
Right.
So when you say the unemployment rate could be much higher, I agree, because those people are not getting unemployment. They're
Right.
not even being counted.
Right. Yeah. So I guess we'll see. I don't know how long it usually takes them to revise. What they lost 800,000 about of the jobs when they revised it. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. Largest P for 19 months says, I don't know if Kennedy would accept the VP role. Now that would
Yeah.
be, yeah, no, obviously that would all have to be worked out behind the scenes. I don't know. It is an interesting question. Would he accept it, or would he prefer to just be head of Health and Human Services or head of some other organization, which would actually grant him more power at the moment? The question of the VP would be, I guess, would he feel like it would more easily set him up for presidency in 2028? So, do I believe if you
Right.
look at the numbers, the VP someone's VP becoming president is actually not a good, not necessarily always a good move statistically. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Diddler, yeah.
Well, and I saw a thing with his campaign manager or vice presidential candidate or something like that where they wanted to get 5% in these states that he's still in.
Mm-hmm.
Did he officially drop out? I guess he did. So
Yeah.
that's like a non thing. Why is he
Well,
so he's only coming off the ballot in certain states?
well, here's another issue. And so I haven't really looked into all of this yet. So I don't know all the facts, but there's an issue where the Democrats are trying to keep him, obviously, I'm assuming Democrats are trying to keep him on the ballot in swing states or keep his name on the ballot against his wishes in swing states to
So
harm
that
Trump.
yeah, totally.
So I wonder now, I don't know whatever legal mechanism they're using to accomplish this and what the law is, but I would wonder if theoretically, if this would be another reason for Trump to replace Vance, is that if Trump makes him his VP, does that automatically make him removed as a third party candidate in these swing states? Or would you have this really bizarre situation where he's on the ballot twice?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But that could be another potential reason to make him VP.
Well, when they were talking about staying in, they were talking about staying in because if you can get 5% of the vote in a general election, it guarantees your party ballot access in future elections. So
Right.
that was one of the factors that they were weighing.
Right.
But I guess if he dropped out completely, they kind of gave up on that goal.
Right. Was he in a party or is it just his own thing?
I think they were trying to start their own party.
Right.
They were trying to start a new party. I just thought that was totally interesting, right? Oh,
Right.
really? Because
Right.
ballot access is the hardest thing. As a
Mhm.
third party candidate, you got to go and petition each state to be on the ballot. The Democrats and the Republicans have a spot locked up on the ballot, like regardless.
Right.
They don't have to petition every single election.
Well, they don't have to petition to have a party swap. They have to petition, I believe, to have their specific candidate on the ballot.
They
'Cause
just
that was
give,
part
they
of
don't
the
have to,
issue with the early Zoom thing, and then they changed the law, remember?
yeah, in that one state.
Right.
But that law was revolving around turning in the name of your candidate for your Democratic thing that's already
Right.
always on the
Exactly. Right.
ballot.
Yes. Yes.
Whether or not the party can be on the ballot is up for
That,
grabs in every single election
right.
with
Right.
these other parties.
Dr. Diller for 29 months. Thanks so much for being 29 months member. Oh my God. It says Kamala really said, quote, "No, Trump, I am the best at shooting myself in the foot. Watch and learn. Bold strategy."
Yeah.
There you go.
Let's see if she pulls it off.
Toxic Mix for $10 says, "I'm not sure there's even means to put RFK on the ticket if they wanted to. Aren't the ballots pretty much locked in now? Plus, isn't RFK having trouble just getting off the ballot in some states?" That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what the law is. I mean, I don't know, because whenever I heard people talking about this, it was obviously in relation to Biden Harris. I hadn't really heard anyone talk about the VP. I don't know if like there's a legal thing where the VP name can't be changed either or not. Because, well, I wonder because like the issue with the president's name is because the presidential candidate has to accept the nomination from the party. I mean, the VP doesn't accept the nomination. They're just chosen by the president. So I don't know.
They might
It's a
not be
good
able to
question.
change the ballot. It might say Trump Vance on the ballot,
You're
which
yeah,
would it wouldn't be
definitely
as
weaken
cool. Yeah.
the idea. Yeah. Can RFK Trump name be on ballots? Yeah, that's a good question. That
Yeah, I
definitely would
wonder.
affect it. Yeah.
I'm sure there is a deadline to change the ballot in each state
Yes, just
because of
'cause
errors
practicality.
or
Right.
whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's probably shortly before they actually go to print the ballot, right? They're printing hundreds of thousands of these ballots in each state. So I wonder, this is an interesting dilemma because if we find out when that is in the first states, then we've got kind of a deadline for Trump to switch Vance for Kennedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And still get on the ballot, which would be the choice move.
I do agree, like, because I'm looking at this article. If you have some elections commission, there was a lot of talk about Trump, Trump putting people on these election commissions to do shenanigans, which I don't doubt at all. But I do think it's pretty shitty if you have some election commission in Wisconsin or Michigan that is, forcing Kennedy's name to be on the ballot, even though he's dropped out. That doesn't really make any sense and doesn't seem to, I can't really imagine a justification for that at all, other than just pure partisanship. Like a good justification for that. So,
Right.
Orion for 28 months. Thanks so much. Says, thanks for the research, gentlemen. S class is best class. Thank you. The real Holtz for $5 says you have to pay on value of the stock less than the principal at the time you sell. Yeah, that's what I said,
the
right?
principal
Yes,
is what you
that's
paid
correct.
for it.
Right. Sebastian Lee for $5 says the chemical RFK Jr. is talking about is silver iodine and is used by weather mod companies to modify the weather. Saudi Arabia does it. It's very real. Well, I know that the cloud seeding thing is very real, but the tweet that he was responding to, that is not what they were talking about at all. Because that's not done secretly. That's just people just do that to try to do the cloud seeding stuff.
Do they do that in jetliners though?
No, they would have a specific plane that would do that. So
Silver iodine cloud seeding. Yeah.
that was like, they had the situation where, they in Saudi Arabia they did it too much and it made like a flood, remember?
Right. Yeah. Oh wow. That sucks. All on desert land with no vegetation.
Right,
That's
right.
like flood central, right?
Well, it makes sense that they'd want to do it some amount because, as you said, it's a desert. So, but then they did it too much or they fucked it up or something. So
Yeah, I don't think American Airlines is cloud seeding. Like it
no.
probably you have to pay money for this silver iodine to get it in the jet fuel and
Right. So now I don't know anything about potential health effects of this or anything. So maybe it has some bad thing. Maybe it's fine. Stuck for $5 says I'm gonna be somebody wearing a Kamala mask too. Not even Kamala herself. Oh, it's gonna be someone wearing a Kamala mask. There you go. In the middle of the interview, you're gonna see like the little mask slip. And you're gonna see it's really like Hillary Clinton. And she's like, oh shit. She like pulls the mask back on. She's like, you can edit this out, right?
oh man.
Sketch for $5 says since it's pre-taped, CNN is going to be able to have an editor cut back and forth between camera angles in post to avoid showing any coaching. There you go. The real wholesale for $10. Thanks so much. Says to clarify my earlier super chat, I didn't realize the threshold was 100 million, so that changes the conversation a lot. Well, there you go. Still, the first income tax was 3% in 1861, and our legal system works on precedent. That is true. I was reading, there was this question about whether it is actually constitutional or not to even do an unrealized gains tax.
Yeah,
And
what was that about?
there was a, let's see where's my tab. I have way too many tabs. There was a court case kind of recently about this, but I didn't have enough time to like understand exactly what it was. It was some family, it had something to do with the person that told us the other day that they were paying taxes on unrealized gains. It has something to do with the only unrealized gains tax that exists is if you have some kind of like foreign investments or foreign assets or something. And there was someone who basically sued on something similar to that on those grounds. They had some kind of foreign investment recently, and the Supreme Court put out a ruling this year about it. And it was kind of like a weird two-sided thing. On one hand, the Supreme Court affirmed that they could tax these unrealized gains, though I don't know. It was like through some complicated thing. It wasn't just through like them owning stock or something, but they could tax unrealized gains. But then the Supreme Court specifically said that they're not answering the question whether unrealized gains are actually a constitutional thing.
Yeah,
So
taxation is in the Constitution. So, but I
right.
don't know the particulars of it in the Constitution.
Yes. So we don't actually know whether an unrealized tax gain would be constitutional or not currently.
Yeah, I
No,
think
like
the
it's within.
Constitution may just say something as simple as Congress can levy taxation.
The case was Charles and Kathleen Moore. So it was Moore versus United States. If you want to look it up.
Okay.
So.
Sounds fun.
Liam S. for 26 months. Thanks so much. Says before he was VP pick, no one had an issue with JD Vance, but since then, Dems have successfully destroyed his reputation. I think they do 100 times worse to RFK Jr. Well, I know you're not talking about me because I've always had a problem with JD Vance, but I'm unique in that capacity. Putting that aside, I mean, you are correct. As soon as someone is chosen for the VP slot, especially if it's a Republican, the scrutiny on them increases 100-fold. So you already see them kind of going after RFK with all the weird, the brainworm stuff, the whale head stuff. So they're already preparing. So you're correct. They will increase the scrutiny significantly.
That's what they do.
Haywood Jablome for $10 says, would you rather be Trump or Kamala right now with current polling and political skills? Can Kamala be the Obama cover band and reunite the coalition by bringing on his campaign staff? I mean, well, you can answer first.
Well, I think we have two imperfect candidates. So, I mean, I would like to combine Kamala's ability to stay on message and Trump's instinctive ability to take questions and do interviews, right? Obviously, they both have flaws.
Yeah, but I guess the way I'm interpreting the question is like, you have to choose to quantum leap into either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, right? In terms of who you think is going to win or who you think has a better chance of winning. I mean, if that's the case, I would quantum leap into Kamala. I think she has a better shot currently. That was still a toss-up.
I can't say that at this point because of the interview problem.
Yeah, but
I think they both have
jump
fatal
into Kamala,
flaws.
It's going to be you though, so you could fix those.
No,
problems,
that's not
right?
the question. The question
That's not
would
the question?
be no. I think the question would be like you're adopting their set of skills.
Oh,
yeah,
I see.
Look, so if you're Trump, you're like, look, I'm very good with my instinct, but I can't stay on message. I'm not adapting to the new situation. Like Trump is making all these huge mistakes. Kamala is also making huge mistakes, and I think they're mistakes in that she just doesn't have the ability to do these off the cuff interviews, which are gonna be necessary. People want to know, they're sizing you up. What is this person going to be like interacting with other world leaders? Are they going to get taken to task? Is everyone in the world going to steal our lunch money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems Kamala cannot meet that mark.
Right.
Yeah. I think people will probably, if Kamala completely fails in that department, I think Trump is probably going to win.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Say that last sentence again.
If Kamala proves through interviews, it looks like a disaster. Like the population can't imagine her having a conversation with Putin and not being just completely destroyed or taken advantage of. They're going to vote for Trump.
Yeah, if it's a total disaster, right? I agree with you. Yes. If the debate or the interviews are just a complete shit show, then yeah, she'll sink her chances significantly. So,
right, yeah,
I think she'll be able to. She'll be able to hobble through it. I don't think it'll be good performances, but it'll be enough that people will just be able to kind of cope their way through it and still support her.
The partisans are going to cope, but the independent voters are not going to. There's no coping going on with them.
No, but there is a sort of wooing process for a lot of the undecideds or independents where they say, well, I don't really have strong feelings or I really don't like either of them. And so I think if she can kind of hobble enough through it, they'll be like, I don't really like Trump, but whatever. Kamala's better, I guess.
We'll see.
We'll see. I mean, if shit's like horrible, then yeah, obviously. So. Our Liege, thanks so much for the $5, says the CIA did several chemtrail and quotes tests under Operation LAC. They also used suitcase atomizers to spray people with bacteria at an airport. Okay.
The CIA did this?
According to that, I don't know what any of this
Well, look,
means.
the CIA has done all kinds of crazy shit. It wouldn't surprise me if they did, if they put stuff in jet fuel to see what would happen to the population.
Operation Large Area Coverage was the United States Army Chemical Corps operation, which dispersed microscopic zinc cadmium sulfide particles over much United States and Canada in order to test dispersal patterns in the geographic range of chemical or biological weapons. There were
Sounds
several tests
awful.
which, well, no, they were testing to see, they're worried about someone dropping chemical agents. So they basically dropped, I'm assuming, something harmless in order to see what it would look like. There were several tests
Sure.
that occurred prior to the first spraying, blah, blah, blah. September
Sure, it was
1950.
harmless.
Yeah, exactly. Sure, it was all part of the conspiracy. 6 simulated attacks were conducted upon the San Francisco Bay Area. It was concluded that it was feasible to attack a seaport with biological aerosol agents from a ship offshore. In 1952, 5 trials were conducted off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia. It was concluded that long-range aerosol clouds could obtain hundreds of miles of travel and large area coverage when disseminated from ground level under certain meteorological conditions. In 1957, North Sea east coast of Britain, it was shown that large area coverage with particles were feasible under most meteorological conditions. So they did
They filled those clouds with
11 quests.
radiation just so they could see
Yeah,
how
there you
far
go.
the fallout would go.
Right.
Can't believe it.
There you go. How terrible. How terrible.
Insane.
Right.
You probably have cancer right now from one of those
There you
clouds.
go. Anecdotal evidence exists claiming that zinc cadmium sulfide caused adverse health effects as a result of the operation. However, a U.S. government study, of course, they're going to say this, done by the U.S. National Research Council stated that after an exhaustive independent review, they
It's
found no
fine.
evidence that exposure to zinc cadmium sulfide could make anyone sick.
It's
So,
fine. Everything is okay.
right. Yeah, but see, this is the problem, and this is kind of what annoys me. Is that there's like a piece of something that's like kind of true, and then there's like you have to make a bunch of leaps in logic, right? So you say, okay, well, so the government did a test to see how like biological agents would disperse over the country if attacked, which makes 100% sense why they'd want to test that. And they use something that they say is harmless. Maybe it's not harmless. Maybe it turns out to cause problems, but they say is harmless and they think it's harmless at the time. How does that then translate into, well, obviously they're doing chemtrails? It doesn't. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever.
Of course.
So you have to make this
Completely
massive leap in
separate.
logic. So
Yeah. Completely separate issues.
Grendel Vat for $5 says, how do I know Sitch and Adam aren't audience captured? They keep talking about replacing JD Vance. Are people really that like upset about replacing JD Vance? I find it amazingly silly. I find it
Right.
amazingly silly. So you can like someone and still understand that it would make sense strategically to do an action. So I don't
I do
like
JD Vance. I just look.
I know you do, but
I don't get any
the
credit
people,
for it.
let me
Get
just say,
lumped
okay,
in.
that's true. Don't lump Adam in with me. And I'll just say this: the people who are ultra mega triggered that I think JD Vance, I think Trump would be better served to win the election if JD Vance is kicked off the ticket. Answer me this question. Do you honestly think, okay, this is the question you have to answer. Do you honestly think that there's a large contingent of people out there in America that would not vote for Donald Trump, but will vote for Donald Trump just because JD Vance is on the ticket?
Yes.
Okay. You think you'd have to think number one, that's yes. And then number two, you have to think that number of people is larger than the number of people that are currently supporting RFK.
Well, I don't know the number. I don't know how large the number is, but I know the
Right.
people.
Right.
They're the
So
Magic the Gathering people.
There you go. The Magic Gathering people. So the Magic Gathering. Oh, yeah, right. There you go.
How many people
Magic
play
crowd, that's
Magic
true.
the Gathering?
That's true. If he gets rid of Vance, he's going to lose the Magic the Gathering vote. That's a good point, Adam. I'm glad you brought that up. So those are the two questions you have to answer before you get mega ultra triggered and realize that you're just kind of letting your elephant decide what you want to happen because you like Vance, which is kind of irrelevant to the point that at least that we're talking about here. So
About 50 million players.
right.
play Magic together.
There you
But
go. He's going to lose 50. Look, it's a good point. Trump
that's
will
world.
lose
It's
50
worldwide
million
though.
votes.
That's
Yeah.
worldwide. So it could like
Oh, okay.
only the Americans can vote.
I see. You got to figure out, yeah.
I guess how many Americans play Magic
I mean,
together?
listen, Vance should have played it up. If Vance could get the Magic vote, we could have a different conversation, right?
Let's see here.
I think Vance would be definitely a bigger boon than RFK at that point.
They don't have American numbers.
Oh, sad.
Sucks.
Ryan Awool for $5 says, "Have you all seen the new Bud Light commercial?"
I have
I
not.
No. What is the new Bud Light commercial?
Is it good?
I don't know. I saw the new Sonic the Hedgehog commercial with Keanu Reeves as Shadow, which is kind of hilarious. But
oh wow,
none of Sonic movies are
that.
No, all Sonic movies are kind of shitty, honestly.
I've not had time to see a movie because I've been trying to finish this comic. God damn it. I'm so close. The digital files are almost ready. They're almost ready to go off to the printer. I can post on Indiegogo. The files are at the printer. Leave me alone.
What? Let's see. New Bud Light commercial. Is this the Shane Gillis commercial you're talking about?
Who knows?
Okay,
Bring it
I'll
up.
check it out.
Put it in the watch together.
I don't think we can watch.
Okay. Probably. I thought the problem is there's all sorts of copyrighted music and a lot of commercials. So
commercials are weird because you think they wouldn't hit you with it because it's a commercial, right? They want people to see it, but
yeah, exactly. They want it to get out there, but then they're like Rolling Stone song.
Yeah, exactly. Old School for $5 says, prediction: the Dems will swap out Kamala after her debate. Republicans will swap out Vance, and Adam will swap out Sitch.
No, I'm never swapping out Sitch.
Terrible. Obviously, I'm swapping out. I mean, what? I would never swap out.
Oh, you're evil. The idea that I like the idea that Kamala could be swapped out for an actual. I just look, if Josh Shapiro was running, it wouldn't even be close. It'd be annihilated. Like they were literally worried Josh Shapiro was going to be on the ticket because he has the Jewish thing, and that would make them stronger for Israel.
First of all, I mean, I assume you're just kind of like being facetious, but I don't know if anyone's saying this sincerely. They can't actually swap out Kamala after the debate. So
after she takes the nomination, right?
She's already taken the nomination, right? So I guess the only thing that could happen is if she dropped out, it would go to Tim Walz automatically, I assume. So
yeah,
but I think there's like a 1% chance that
look, there's like 0 chance she could be swapped out.
Right.
I'm just saying that.
I mean, there could be some. She could trip downstairs and die or something, right? Theoretically, so there's a very small % chance that she would be swapped out for any reason.
Would it go to Tim Walz then?
I believe it has to. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So he could pick Josh Shapiro.
There you go.
Running mate.
How hilarious would that be?
I just look. You look at Josh Shapiro. I mean, he'd be running to. He'd be doing 2 interviews a day.
Right.
Yeah.
Even Tim Walz would be doing it, like a bunch of interviews, probably.
Kamala Harris has a big secret. A big secret that she's hiding from all of us. And it's not that
everyone knows, you mean?
And it's not that she's an amazing speaker.
Right. Arithmetic for $2 says, so when you sell 40% of your company to pay your unrealized gains tax, do you also get hit with capital gains tax for that sale? Ooh, that's a good fucking question.
What is it?
So imagine that you're one of these people getting hit with this wealth tax, okay? And this unrealized gains tax. And you have to sell like a bunch of shares to pay the tax. Do you get hit on top of it with a capital gains tax when you initially sell it?
Oh, yeah.
That would be horrendous. That would be an insane level of double taxation. Holy shit. Well, actually, would it? Because, okay, wait, let me think about how this would work. I don't have to do the math because when you get hit, it gets reduced. That still seems pretty fucking crazy. Well, that seems insane. That seems crazy. Yeah. Well, I don't know. We don't know how the specific policy proposal would even work. So that's pretty bad. That's the case. Wow. Oh
I still
man.
think they're gonna abandon it. This guy
Um.
doesn't. He's
mhm.
nobody.
Okay. Here. Listen, we're gonna do our gentleman's bet. Okay, we're gonna bet $1. I bet you $1. This will not be abandoned. This policy will continue into the election. I don't think it's gonna ever get implemented, but I think it will continue until the election's over.
Okay, but we got to see it in like a policy paper on Kamala's website or something. It can't just be, informal advisors for the Kamala Harris campaign. It can't just be in that state forever.
Okay, so here's the bet. Either, yes, it has to be an official Kamala Harris policy proposal, or Kamala Harris or an official campaign staffer will have to endorse it. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Now, double or
Or
double,
Kamala comes out and supports it. Kamala says
double,
unrealized gains
right?
should be taxed.
I'm going to bet an extra dollar that
hmm
in the first debate, this question will be asked and she will answer affirmatively that she supports it.
I bet you
Yeah.
double, double, double that she's
Okay.
asked about unrealized gains in the debate and she
Yes.
word salads into obscurity.
Wait, that's not fair. That's every answer. It's gonna be a word salad.
That she word salads into incomprehensible gibberish.
No, that's not fair. Well, okay. I'm gonna double your double. That she will give a word salad answer, but in the word salad answer will be a clear affirmative yes on supporting the unrealized capital gains tax
Okay. We'll
or
see.
unrealized wealth tax. Yeah.
It'll be
Okay. I don't
fun to
know.
dissect whether or
Now I
not it's
have no
clear.
clue how much we just bet each other.
I know. Well, they were only gentlemen's bets, so they were only $1. I think
Well, we
we might be
started
up
with a
to
dollar, so we
I
doubled the
think we might be
dollar.
up to $4.
We might be up to, it's like, you keep doubling something, it somehow becomes like $1,000 million.
Which this is you got to do it like 30 times to get up to get in the real money, but
Right. Okay,
that
so
is
we'll
funny.
see.
Like when we were up to $2, did we double the $2? Did we make it
I don't
actually to
know.
like $8?
Yeah, who knows? This could be a big bet. I'll let the chat figure it out, right?
Anyway,
So
I
there you go.
do
There's our official bets. All right.
it is going to be fun when that question comes up in the debate. God, now I hope the debate happens. What the fuck are you doing, Trump? Like, what's going on?
There you go. I like that. Sasha says,
Agree to the debate already.
Sasha in the chat says, what we can taxed, unburdened by what has been taxed. Exactly.
Oh
That'll
my
be the
God.
answer.
That is so true.
Yeah.
We can tax you. Unburdened by how we
Yes.
have taxed you.
Right. Forrest for $10 says, I've seen too many people attempting to defend the rationality of unrealized gains tax by comparing it to a mortgage or private real estate. The insanity of this plan and their doubling down blows my mind.
Well,
It
there
hits
is a lot
those
of
intuitions, yeah.
miscommunication, though. There's
Right.
a lot of, I think people are arguing over a term that different people are using different meanings for. So,
Yeah. Oh, I got to read those super chats I missed from yesterday.
yeah, I put them in there.
Lou Silver for $5 says, guys, have you seen Jeremy from Nerdrotic's new Trump channel? Does it seem like he should maybe stick to woke Marvel criticism?
No,
have
but
not.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I kind of like Jeremy, so I hope it's not too bad.
I'll check it out too. Metal Rules 81 for $5 says this is for U.S. persons who buy foreign mutual funds directly in the foreign country to discourage such investments. It's been there since 1986. That's very interesting.
So he actually super chatted earlier in the
That he had
in the
unrealized
super
gains,
chat
yeah.
saying that he was paying unrealized gains tax already. Well, I
Right.
guess if you're buying foreign investments in a place where they have this unrealized gain tax, they have it from 1% to 2%. You're still going to pay that.
No. He's saying the U.S. wants to disincentivize people from investing in foreign markets. So the U.S. will slap on an unrealized wealth tax on people investing in foreign markets like that.
Right. So it is a U.S. tax.
It's the U.S., yes.
Okay.
Which is interesting. I didn't know that. And Antelope for $2 says Destiny schizophrenic edit was peak. Yeah, I still got to check that out. So
what is that?
it's a video.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Anyway, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for your incredibly generous donations. And I guess we'll see you all tomorrow.
Did you get the last Forrest $10 one?
I did.
Okay. Yeah, this was a great conversation. We'll talk again tomorrow. We'll see what mayhem is raised between now and then. So
Yep. Take care.
take care.